Hey, it's John Carlos, and I am here, as always, with the lovely and wonderful
Eddie!
Eddie.
Except
It
for when you're
is.
not with except for when you're with BJ, sometimes
Yeah,
you're not always with me.
not
He's not
always.
always with me, folks.
Like 80% of the time.
Yeah, something like
And
that.
then 20% of the time, I'm cheating on you. Talk
Oh,
about
it's a
movies with another guy.
it's an open relationship. We
Yeah.
we dally about, we don't have like those kinds of constraints like, old
Yeah.
traditional horror buddies do. How did we get here?
We are, whatever, but we are polyamorous in our cinephilia. So, it's
Please move on.
December. It's December.
Yes.
Cinephilia. It's December. And Christmas time, good times, lots of fun stuff. We watched, and we're here to talk about Gremlins, which
Yeah.
which isn't the first Christmas Christmas time kind of horror movie,
Hmm.
but I do feel like it broke through in a bigger way and connected with the public in a way that Black Christmas never did, and Willy
Mm.
Wonka never did.
Mainstream, totally.
Yeah, being released by studio and produced by Spielberg helps. But
Yes, in the 80s for sure.
yeah, but even then, like I think it was the first. I think the first produced script by Chris Columbus, who was like just an aspiring writer living alone in New York.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like there's this giant like Spielberg's like, I've got an idea. Like it was a guy who wrote a little horror thing, and then Joe Dante, who I think had only done Piranha and The Howling.
Hmm.
Even after the modest success within the horror community of The Howling, no one expects Gremlins to, like that and Ghostbusters be like two of the biggest movies of that year, and to have
Hmm.
plushies and the suction cups on the cars, and 30, 40 years later, almost 40 years, right? People can
Yeah.
still, yeah, that's huge. So that was this. That was um, accessible enough that I, as a child in the '80s, got to watch it on VHS and grew up with it. Like that was the norm. It was,
Yeah, me
um,
too.
but something I enjoyed as I got older. So like, I saw it as a kid, and we could talk about how I reacted to it as a kid. But
Yeah.
um, it just be it, there's something. It's funny when you get older, when you experience things as a kid, and you only know them as what you and your friends knew it as. This was a movie, and it was part of your life, and you could quote it, and you loved it. And then I don't know, you get into your 20s, and then you start to, like, I don't know, read reviews and learn about how there wasn't really a mainstream horror Christmas movie prior to this. So like there was a sort of there was a certain kind of reaction from adults who were like, how dare this is this how, at Christmas time, and these little goblins, and they're no, and the old lady at the window, and like Leonard Maltin was like, this movie's mean and foul and ugly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
critics who were like, this is I was not exposed to any of that when I was 5 or 6 years old, or
Not
even
at all.
all through my my late adolescence and all that shit. So I don't know. That's a movie that when I watch it now, not only do I feel nostalgic for when I was a child, not only do I like
Hmm.
it on its terms, but I also think of it through like the stuffed shirt, never seen a PG movie this mean before as like a Christmas holiday. Like I watch it through that prism, and it makes me just like the movie more for what it achieved to the cinematic squares who, and I'm not saying this movie's a trailblazer, but like we've had many movies since then where
Hmm.
this sort of thing isn't as foreign. You can make your Krampus, you can make a fuck ton of other like goblin-y movies. There was like a million like rip-offs. You had Munchies.
Oh,
Remember?
like
Do you remember?
critters and
Yeah.
hobgoblins and yeah.
Do you remember how many '80s movies featured like little creatures?
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yeah. Also, I mean, on the heels of what you were discussing as far as like the parental kind of like, I guess, uprise against it, like at the time, because it did, it did experience its roots in horror, the original Chris Columbus first draft that was bought by Warner Brothers was much more of a horror movie. There were a lot more death. The mother was beheaded
Mhm.
in it, and the head bounced down the stairs to greet Billy when he came home. Um, so and then Steven Spielberg got attached. Oh, because even Gizmo was supposed to
The
be
famous change.
Stripe. He was supposed
Stripe.
to be
Yeah.
Stripe, and then like it got switched because Spielberg thought there was an opportunity to make, you know, like one character among all these like Mogwai, kind of like the cuddly one who's like Billy's pal and, you know,
Right.
should always be with him, and
And
it
we'll be
made
with
all
him
the
past the
yeah,
point where Stripe happens. Like he'll be with you.
exactly,
And he was also
which was the smartest thing about
because merchandising, merchandising, merchandising.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is it also kind of reminds me, you know, because my parents certainly didn't kind of like champion that backlash that was going on, because they let me watch it when I was a young boy. And it did have the impact on me that it did, so much so that Billy was one of those characters who, I mean, just the fact that he had like dark curly hair and he liked to draw, and was enough to kind of like, and he seemed to be, even though he's kind of a man-child, walking many rewrites and everything like that. So there's like remnants of the boyhood, because he was supposed to be an original, a little boy in the original script. And then they made him like a man with a job at a bank, but he's still hanging out with little Corey Feldman in his attic room.
Attic room, lives, you know.
Like, yeah, there were a lot, and there are even like
But
deleted scenes that allude to him kind of, you know, embracing this heroism,
I
and
respect
becoming the
though.
hero that he would draw on the
Yeah.
cover of his comics and stuff. Yeah.
I just respect the idea that this is not a foreign concept now, but maybe it was more foreign back then, that he had a job. So
Hmm.
he was an adult, but he would still go
Hmm.
home and read comic books and bought them at the local like nerd store. And he has
Right.
Victoria magazine laying around, and
Hmm. Yeah. And but also
but he's not
my
played as,
boy.
oh, I'm a nerd, Big Bang Theory, girls.
Well,
Like he's
no,
just a
no.
guy. Like a lot of nerds, he's just a guy.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I love one thing. I mean, there's so much to unpack with this movie, because it is that much in my psyche, and because it's experienced kind of like a resurgence of controversy as the years have gone by. But sticking to Billy and my boyhood,
Mm.
well, actually, sorry, a lot of tangents. This is gonna be a tangential as fuck
Ah,
thing, guys. So sorry. But one thing I love about this movie is the commentary with the cast, because Zach Galligan just like shoots out of a rocket with all of this energy and remembers kind of everything. I mean, it was his first starring feature, and he's so excited to just kind of like compare notes and share, you know, memories with people and everything. But one of the things that I love that he points out is what kind of like oh shit, I don't remember the exact word he uses, but yeah, what kind of like strange, you know, like man boy am I, that I'm like, you know, like working at a bank, and then my best friend is still like an 11-year-old boy who dresses as a Christmas tree to, you know, help his dad out in the Christmas tree lot of the neighborhood. And it takes him, I think he pointed out, like it takes him, he always assumed that he and Phoebe Cates' character Kate have known each other since like grade school, you know, that they grew up with each other. And it took him how many years to just finally ask out the girl next door. Like there are remnants of, like, you know, again, that kind of boyhood, like, you know,
mhm.
timidity that like, or when you see them manifest in a man. To some people seem problematic. To me, because I was a boy, because I thought she's pretty, and I thought, like, he has a dog and a mogwai. He's got it all, you know. That's what I want.
He's got that cool attic room. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well,
And
yeah, you know, again, he has a job, but he's not like an adult.
yes, he can still
So
take his dog to work. What, I don't
no,
remember the last time I saw a dog in a bank
but he can
that belonged to
also.
an employee.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like any age can do that. Um, I was just thinking more, just the way he asks her out is such a youth that they're both young. I guess she's got to be what, 20? Well, I know certain states you can serve alcohol at 18, but
Hmm.
or 21, but still, so they're in their early 20s if she's working in a bar.
In a deleted scene, because I rewatched them before we did this, I know that it was the original opening of the entire movie where Hoyt Axton's character Rand Peltzer is actually in.
The
Oh boy.
original shot. Yeah, that opening shot.
Yeah, we'll get there. But he's in another shop, and it's being run by the woman who is from When Harry Met Sally. She's just sitting there on the couch when the old Asian couple is like telling their story about how they met, and the old man says like, I met her in the next village and all that stuff. That lady who's sitting next to him, so sweet, with like the lovely white stripe in her hair, she's like, you know, this matronly store clerk. She doesn't speak English very well, and he's looking for something for his teenage son.
Teenage, okay.
So I'm like, okay, he's a teen, so that means
19.
Yeah, I'm guessing 18, like maybe like just the spring before graduated from high school. This is his first job. That's why he's still kind of shacking up with his parents while employed in a job that seems like it would pay, you know, well enough, but still has these dreams of like, you know, drawing, hasn't quite found a place for it to take off yet. And I don't know, it just seemed to kind of like answer a lot of questions as far as like bridging the gap between this boy character and who this man character ends up becoming.
If he and Kate are the same age, then you know, maybe they're in a state where the alcoholic level is, you know, age is 18.
Also, it's a small town. Maybe to a certain extent, like because she's helping out and they're in a spot.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Like,
maybe it's not a job since she's helping out, you know.
Yeah. So
you know, I worked in a comic book shop for one day when I was like 13.
What did you do?
Like it was just one of those things where like I really liked the comic book shop and I thought it was so cool to work here. So like I don't think they like employed me, obviously, but like they let me like work there for a day and I got to like, you know, be behind the counter and people paid money. Like I would give it to them and they put it in the register and like I just like I gotta work in a comic book shop for a day. So, you know, businesses can be
do that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Speaking, let me just, we're going to jump around. But you
yes.
So I just want to go, because the deleted scenes in this movie, a lot of them are interesting. The opening scene, the thing I find interesting about the opening deleted scene, besides, you know, of it, is I love when you see this a lot in movies, right? Where like, there's a scene that occurs, and then it's cut. And then the scene that we see in the movie is just, it's already like, we got it all. Like this movie opens with like, come on, my dad's shop is down here. Oh, it's there. And you already understand that this boy has found this man. It's like, come on, I'll take you to the shop.
Yeah.
You see how incredibly superfluous this whole opening scene is. Well, I'm looking for a gift for my son. Hey, my grandpa's got a shop. And you're just like, yeah, cut all this shit. Got it. The next scene, but it's just, but they're lucky that it's a case where that opening scene didn't have anything vital, that we can't lose it. And you see this with movies all the time, and I call them like little cinematic miracles where you don't have to go back and reshoot anything. You have the information you need in this other scene. You can just lose this one.
Sure.
And that allows us to have, in my opinion, a very, I think, a better opening, because the movie opens with like this moody lighting of this Chinatown street and the voiceover and the fog, and it feels dramatic and mysterious, way more than just like, oh, I'm in a shop and I'm looking for something for my son. Like this sets a mood. We don't know what's going on with this store and what we're gonna find in it in this alley downstairs. Like,
and Hoyt Axton has a great voice to tell a story.
Great voice.
It's like, well, nobody's got a story like this. Nobody.
I grew up thinking he was an actor.
Yeah.
And to a certain degree, yes, he became, you know, an actor. But I didn't know until somewhat recently, in the last few years, that this guy's a songwriter and was, you know, formerly a singer and had a whole career writing for like Three Dog Night and all this stuff. And that, like, well, now I'm getting into acting, which you could have fooled me, because this Hoyt was like Axton.
Yes.
I don't know if we ever have, we say this enough. He's a goddamn natural.
Yeah.
He just, like when he's describing to Billy, like the rules, like I just lean in, and I wasn't even aware of it, knowing now what I knew about then, but like I always like, he makes me want to listen. Like, he pulls me fucking in. He has a fucking natural presence. Like he is, could have blew my mind that he was like not a trained actor.
Oh yeah, no, and even in
Fine.
his interactions with Key Luke and with his family and everything. I mean, I never doubted that he was. It wasn't even an actor, that he was Rand Peltzer. You know, that
Yeah.
he was this character that he's claiming to be. Again, maybe that's partly youth, but I don't like return to that performance as an adult and go, wow, that was just me as a kid, just buying into like what what I was being
Right.
told. And it's like I watch it, and I'm just like, people train to reach
Yeah.
that kind of level of a lack of muscle and ease, and
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm home and that's my kid and I brought him something, and I'm an inventor. Even the way he declares himself an
Yeah.
inventor, and the way he pitches his sales and everything like
To the
that, all
guy
of
at the
his little,
gas station.
oh my
If
god,
if you know
yeah,
if acting, you know, like at its core is the pursuit of like putting truth out there to fiction.
yeah.
I mean, he's the most natural truth speaker. Jesus. Anyway.
You know, one of the people who auditioned to play and who was really in the running for it was Pat Hingle.
Oh, I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
The problem was when he kind of went through the filtration system of producers and all the hands, you know, that the tapes have to go through. He seemed too dramatic. He's like he was really doing this incredibly, the way Joe Dante put it, this incredibly artful and realistic depiction of a broken down inventor who is
Oh,
losing kind of like hope, and who really just, you know, like very death of a
turns out
salesman kind of.
we
Yeah,
actually need a little more what Commissioner Gordon became, which is like, well, the Red Triangle
yeah,
Service is back.
exactly. He was too fascinating. Like that was not the movie they were making. And, you
Uh,
know, and luckily, like, they found the person they cast was the right person. Absolutely. Um,
oh,
okay. But since you winced though, uh, I just want to get it out of the way so that we can just talk about the movie, because in the deleted scene, one of the first image of the movie originally, instead of just kind of being like the streets of like Chinatown late at night with like smoke going and Hoyt Axton's thing, it was just a laughing animatronic, or even just electronic. I don't think it was
yeah.
animatronic. It
It
wasn't
was a
advanced.
little animated electronic toy.
Yeah, which was of an Asian gentleman that was laughing. That's all I'm going to say to describe it. If you got any more curiosity, do your research. But it was not sensitive. It was not nuanced. It was outright insulting. And actually, when I saw that, I was kind of like taking my notes on like the racism that's become to be identified from many angles within this story that I don't always agree with, but at the same time, I saw that opening and I was like, there is some recklessness here. Even though it got cut, they shot it. They thought that was okay. So like, you know what? We're opening in Chinatown. How about if we just put this, you know, racially insensitive robot, you know, and
Right.
just to give them the flavor. And
Right.
I mean, I can hear the, you know, like the thoughts, like the ignorance in my head as I'm watching it. So I'm just kind of like, okay, well, good for you for editing that out. That said, a big part of like why I've been kind of pushing John Carlos to discuss this movie for a while. I mean, I'm not pushing, but just kind of like recommending, going like, there's always Gremlins.
Yeah.
It's just
Although
because
this
like,
time I was like, hey, fucking Gremlins.
yes, and I'm like, yes, because there is something that I do have to say, almost kind of like in rebuttal. I heard it was a while ago. I had tried on the Bechdel cast, which is you know, like kind of running movies through the Bechdel test and discussion with two female hosts, and they invite guests who like recommend a movie. They all watch the movie and then discuss. And sometimes it's a really productive conversation, and sometimes not, which is why I stopped listening. So one of the ones that I did listen to, though, was the Gremlins episode. And they brought someone on, and they were, you know, they're always prepared to, you know, unpack like women's roles in movies and things like that. But they also unpacked a lot of the racial controversy that surrounded the movie. And I wanted to read something, actually, if I may. It's just a paragraph that was sent in by someone who was on their Crazy Rich Asians episode called Sita Jean. And it's just about the representation of Asian culture in this movie. So if you'll indulge me for a moment, John
Yeah.
Carlos. This is her voice. Well, there's no existence of furry critters in Chinese history that explode into a mass of overpopulation overnight. Mogwai in Chinese literally means demon or devil, but it doesn't have the traditional Judeo-Christian connotations attached. Sometimes a demon in Chinese culture is simply a spirit that has returned to Earth or someone with an unsettled debt. Demons aren't necessarily evil. The thing I find funny about the Chinese origin of Gremlins is that the movie Critter takes very little from any kind of real Chinese mythology, but really builds on 1980s fear of Red China. I really see Mogwais or Chinese critters as just another extension of the Red Scare. These Chinese monsters are uncontrollable. They run rampant in America, aping all the things that make America American. The Gremlins are incredibly destructive once they've been let out of the bag, so to speak. They run amok during the height of a very sacred holiday in America, which is Christmas. This to me really reads as a what happens scenario if something Asian does take over America. This is supported textually by a line of dialogue, Mr. Futterman, when he says, "You got to watch out for gremlins because foreigners put gremlins in their machinery, the same gremlins that brought down our planes in World War II. There's definitely a weird othering of Asian culture here. The only Asian characters are mysterious, speak in riddles, and if we think of the gremlins as Asian, then they also speak in gibberish. Gremlins rely pretty heavily on the idea of Orientalism, which is that the Far East is inscrutable and is impossible for any Westerner to try. And once anyone tries, they unleash chaos that has to be contained by any means necessary. Billy doesn't ever try to understand the gremlins. In the movie, he only tries to defeat them, which makes sense if you think of Billy in the American exceptionalism sort of way." I have a lot of thoughts.
You've ruined Gremlins for me.
No, I
No.
hope I haven't, because honestly, honestly, I was listening to this, and this was recorded like 2 years ago, and I remember listening to it. Even then, it left an impact on me because here we had this essay, de facto essay written by Sita Sean, an Asian TV writer and podcaster and whatnot, and all I wanted to do was have a conversation with her, because immediately it was being read by one of the Caucasian podcasters of the Bechdel cast, and immediately she and her guest and her co-host all started just kind of nodding, going like, "Wow, well, she said it all. That's amazing." And I'm like, nobody's going to dispute anything, just because I won't dispute, again, the presence of racism in anything probably that was crafted in the 1980s and mainstream and tried to appropriate culture and depict it in a particular way. I never even thought actually about the origin of Mogwai and how it got kind of like funneled through this American machine and turned into, who we identify as Gizmo and the cuddly creature every kid wants to have, which they even comment on in the movie. But I never thought about it as appropriation. I never thought about it not having its origins in Chinese culture. So there is not only an otherness being kind of courted, but there's also like a mysticization of a culture that actually exists. That I agree with. That said, there's something about the comment about the Red Scare that still, I can't argue it's not there, especially when one of the movies that Gizmo watches when he learns to watch television is Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, the only thing I thought that connected, because I knew Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 1956 version as a kid. Yes, that's all I thought was the pods and the sense of foreboding and them opening up. And they're here already, you're next of it. I didn't know about McCarthyism or the Red Scare. Right. But as I grew older, even when I would read, before I, heard this podcast or even kind of like read these essays online about like, the racism within this movie, I'd watch that and just kind of think, well, the history of Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1956 is fraught with its own controversy because people still argue whether that movie, the book was written with McCarthyism in mind. It was about McCarthyism, about the demonizing that we do to each other. The movie, the creative team behind it largely claimed that they were just making a sci-fi thriller, and that's all they wanted to do. And I think maybe, if anything, we can attribute to their carelessness the fact that there's a fuzzy lens that people can watch that original movie through, because on one hand, there's an argument that can be made that it's about McCarthyism because it's based on the book, but it also, the language and the fear mongering that it does seems to largely kind of charge people in favor of the Red Scare, which, and I feel like that's in a way what makes it kind of like a sister sequel, I mean, or like a sister cinematic experience with Gremlins,
Right.
because I think you can definitely see everything that Sita Sean is arguing here in this essay, but you can also do what I'm doing, which is kind of argue against some points, because she talked about this being a what happens scenario if Asian culture takes over America. Even as a child, for me, this movie was always about the fact that US citizens can't handle responsibility. Even as a
We just
kid,
need
I just thought we can't handle anything.
No,
you
we
know?
just need you to stay at home, go out only for essentials, wear a mask, and just fucking chill the fuck out. And
Exactly.
nope, I need to go to a bar and cough and sneeze all over my waiter and
Fuck the
have my
rules.
maskless
I'm
dinner.
an American.
Yeah.
I don't need to live my life by rules. I can live my life consequence free because I'm an American and I have a truck. But
Damn it.
no, so yeah, incredibly, like particularly even
Yes.
these days, incredibly resonant with me. Also the fact that I feel like she mentions Dan Futterman and his comment about like the watching out for gremlins because foreigners put gremlins in their machinery and everything like that. I never felt like Dan Futterman was introduced as a hero of this movie, or as a character
never.
who we're supposed to align ourselves. Even
Nope.
Billy kind of shrugs it off and dismisses him, like, well, that's crazy old, Mr. Futterman. I'm just trying to get to work right now. Really got to get to work, and Dan Futterman also like tries to chime in when he asks him about his comics and says like, I can't wait to see you up there with Lil Abner and Smiling Daniel or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Smiling
Lil
Jack,
Abner
I
and
think.
something.
And he's just kind of like, oh, Mr. Futterman, they don't even run those comics anymore. So this is a man who is largely out of
date. Yeah.
Yes, with the direction that the world has taken. And
Yep.
he's more like that crazy old coot who's going on about how his Kentucky Harvester, and there's nothing wrong with that because it's American made. And I always, even as a kid, I could recognize the irony of that being in as far as the movie. If we just deal with the first movie isolated, it doesn't look like he meets a victorious end there. We only kind of find out that they've survived in the sequel.
Yeah,
and I don't think that was the intent of that original scene.
No, I think and this is not a Gremlins 2 discussion, but I do think that it was just Joe Dante going, well, I always put him in my movies, so
right,
he's in Gremlins 2. Surprise, he lived because he has to be in it. No, but I definitely, it's not quite as far as the Chasing Amy example of, Chasing Amy saying that, every girl needs is a good deep dicking. No, we put that in the mouth of the asshole and the idiot. I wouldn't go as far as to say Dan Futterman is the asshole or the idiot of the movie, but he's definitely not the hero. And he's definitely treated very much in the way that even now I encounter people of a generation or a generation and a half older than me ranting on about, in those German cars. I just go, the way Billy, but I love that Billy is still polite and, like he's not,
right.
I feel like now we just go like, no, I believe this, you believe that, fucking culture clash and everything's canceled. But like back then, and hopefully still now, you can just sort of be friendly with that guy and just not and go, okay. Anyway, I'll see you later.
There's
Mr.
even
Futterman.
a world.
You can still just, anyway, I'll see you later, Mr. Futterman, to people, and Billy
or even
definitely.
Like if it were to be rebooted, Billy could even just kind of say, well, Mr. Futterman, I don't think you can really say that anymore.
Right.
Something like that. Still, friendly, still kind of thumbs up like
that.
You know what? I like you, but Mr. Futterman, you got
that exact story.
Yes.
I'm not going to get into it too much, but I know someone who used a really outdated nomenclature for a certain race, and I was like,
oh,
hey,
jeez.
I just want to let you know, like, we don't really use that anymore.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't be like, how dare you? I'm like, let me explain to you, what we say now,
Sure.
And even he
Sure.
was like, what? And I'm like, we've kind of evolved, and you might want to consider getting with the times. You got to keep it friendly. You got to kind of keep it a little Billy, depending on the situation. I forgot how I got
There's
onto
a way
that.
to confront it without becoming
There
confrontational. I do
is.
agree with that.
But I will say that I thought it always, by giving him those little rants, I didn't read into it much more than when the Gremlins attack the city and invade his house. I just always thought as like, well, this is this guy's worst nightmare. Remember that guy from earlier? This must be like his hell.
Yeah.
And I didn't read into it. There was a lot to unpack from what you read there.
Yes. Yes, go ahead, please.
Here's what I'll say.
Yeah.
Almost all of that had never occurred to me before.
Sure.
I'm not going to defend any of the writers or producers, but prior to that reading, I had always chalked up the idea of, well, we've got these gremlins and we've got this mogwai, and he buys it from someone. We always have, each kind of decade has its other, We have a lot of, post 9/11 other. We
Yes.
have a Red Scare era other. And I just sort of thought that they were trying to create, it can't be a domestic creature. It's got to be from somewhere else.
Sure.
Somewhere more exotic than the U.S., somewhere kind of distant. So, it's in Chinatown. We're not going to think about it too much. A lot of little random racist things from the 80s also come from not the kind of racism that's like coming from a place of hate, but that kind of social, that comes from a place of ignorance, where you don't necessarily know that you're being racist, and the idea of it being institutionalized and being bred into you, and not the idea of, well, I'm not racist because I don't say the N-word. Like, no, it's not. There's different levels, and culturally there have been different levels. I always grew up just because, but I became aware of the idea of mogwai being the word somewhere in the bonus features.
Yeah.
Like, mogwai is Chinese for demon. Oh, okay. Well, did they mean it to be more than just some random like other country?
Right.
Who the fuck knows? But I will say this: a lot of what's the writer's name?
Sita Shun.
Sita Shun. Even though a lot of that had never occurred to me, none of it made me go, well, there's no basis for that. I'm like, well, that's
right.
Interesting. That's certainly an experience that I haven't lived through. I can't come back against that, but I will say, up until I'm 40 years old, not a single Asian person I know has ever brought that up to me before.
Right.
It's not, there's certain things that percolate over time and become a thing that, like, oh, well, we all know about that movie when I was a kid, and we all look back on it now, but no one's ever cited any of that before. But I mean, the literal Red Scare, and so much of the Red Scare media in the 80s to me was more Russian-based when it came to the fear of communism. And then the late 80s, early 90s was the boom of the Japan.
Sure.
Businessmen, diehard, Japanese companies in the U.S. and yeah. I think it's a she, right?
Yes.
Everything that she says, I feel like, is valid to her experience. Nothing in there challenged me to the point where I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
But holy geez, man.
Well,
I thought I was watching a fun. I'm not gonna commit to. Oh my God, it's an anti-Chinese, American, like, because I don't know how much was intended. Holy shit, though.
This is the thing. I certainly agree again that, like, white American ignorance kind of, led this film, through production and to audiences. So you see what you see. That's another thing about, art being subjective, is that, like, if it's not always, if we don't have a diverse community creating the content that's going out to a diverse community,
Right.
how many voices are going to get served? How many people are going to get seen? I just said that Billy appealed to me, not, and he wasn't Mexican, but he appealed to me because he was a guy with dark curly hair who liked to draw, and so did I. And so I felt represented. I felt recognized. I felt like, ooh, I might be like Billy when I grow up. I would like to have a dog like Billy. I would like to have a mogwai like Billy. And I was in the closet. I didn't know that gay was an option. So I thought I would like to have a girlfriend like Phoebe Cates. Who wouldn't, you know? There you go. But, but, so I can't, so again, yeah, I agree with you in terms of like, I don't want to like completely, you know, like denounce anything that Sita has written. That's why I say like, I just wish I could have like either talked to her, and I don't mean argue, but just talk and just ask questions, because I feel like there are points in this movie that argue against xenophobia, as flawed as it is in its attempt in certain moments. I also feel like, and we can go into this too, this is my perspective, but I mean, like, even just like her statement she wrote, I can't argue completely against it, but she says the only Asian characters are mysterious, speak in riddles. And I just thought, well, no, that, because one of them certainly, like Key Luke's character, absolutely. And they never really kind of moved beyond that. But his grandson seems largely kind of like to have assimilated, and just seems to be kind of like, I don't know how to describe it any other way than like a typical American boy.
Right.
And what we would perceive, I guess, in 1984 as a typical American boy who just happens to be either Asian or Asian American. I don't know how he would identify. But so I'm just like, okay, granted, he's not like a big player, but well, what does he do? You know, how would kids, you know, how must Asian kids feel watching that? And again, it's so kind of like fraught with landmines, which is why I wanted to bring it up and not say I have the answer and I'm right, but I would really love to like sit down with Sita and just kind of break down even more. I'm sure this isn't everything, you know, that resonated with her, but there were other things that jumped out at me even when I was a kid that just seemed, and I watched it in this watching again, even just watching, I wrote down Hoyt Axton as Rand Peltzer. He encounters the Mogwai, this fragile, pure little life that requires your vigilance and your dedication to the rules. And what is the first thing he wants to do? He wants to buy it. He wants to take it home to his son. And he even like is laying down the money and doubles down and goes like, $200. Do you realize that's $200? And the kid who speaks money, you know, is getting that, and he, you know, nobody's going down to the store. He's trying to pull people in off the street, and he's not thinking about like the long-term effects or anything. And maybe he doesn't even care. Maybe he doesn't even know. We don't know what he knows about the Mogwai either. He seems so disinterested in it when he's like describing when Hoyt's looking through the little thing, and he's just kind of like, what's he doing? He's like, he's singing. He does that sometimes. I mean, I can imagine any kid seeing a Mogwai would be like, a Mogwai in the Gremlins movie going, oh, you know, like, I can't give this away. This is like the coolest thing ever. And he's so sweet, and, you know, and he sings. But this kid, so maybe it's just been, I don't know. I mean, because even with a puppy, imagine like a puppy.
The kid understands American capitalism and commerce.
Exactly.
And along those same arguments, not arguments, but the same point that you're making about Billy's dad, when we find out it multiplies, what does he want to do? Instantly.
Yeah.
I'm going to sell it. This
could replace the dog as the family pet, the Peltzer pet. Let's brand it.
Just as much to say about the poo-pooing of the American concept of I don't want to say capitalism in general. I mean, capitalism's not great, but I don't know.
How about the myth of the American dream then?
Yeah.
Because I mean, here he is appropriating
the entrepreneurial, picking himself up by the bootstraps, but also finding that shortcut to the American dream, and you know.
Well, because another thing that makes me kind of think this movie isn't about championing America, there are two instances. And one of them is, like, here he takes this Mogwai, renames it, calls it Gizmo, after you know, he's an inventor. He's making little gizmos. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to brand this. This will be my invention. This will be the thing that will, you know, we'll build our wealth on and everything like that, because we're hurting. And so is every other family in the district now, because Mrs. Deagle, old money, capitalism, you know, selling off oh, there's a deleted scene where they find out that all the houses have X's on them and they're being sold off to like build, who knows, a plant, a factory, something like that. And Phoebe Cates's house has an X on it. You know, it's a Target. So is Billy's, and so are like all these other houses that she hasn't evicted people from. And you know, even on Christmas, because what are all her cats named after? Forms of currency. It's all about the almighty dollar, just like with Rand Peltzer going, that's, you know, the money is the bottom line. That's $200.
And this is your villain. You know.
Yeah. But it made me think like, okay, maybe there really isn't a hero in this movie outside of Gizmo, you know? Because Billy, I remember Zach Galligan in the commentary even pointed out that they cut out a section at the very end where Stripe is
where he
melting.
saves the day.
Yeah, where Gizmo has already pulled up a drape to expose the sunlight and everything like that and make Stripe die. But he's not quite dying yet. So Billy pulls another cord, and then 2 windows are exposed. So he's got double trouble. And that's when he starts to, and all that cool stuff that I fucking loved when I was a kid. And I fucking love now with the practical, you know, decomposition of Stripe. But they took that out. And I'm really glad they did, because that kind of sends me a signal that like, no, it's not about white America. It's saving the day. The origin, like the force that you couldn't be held responsible for, Peltzer family, that you ultimately created and needed to destroy to keep a lid on it and everything like that, and it cost lives, innocent lives in the meantime. It had to be its own undoing. Like Gizmo, it had to go back to the source. He had to be the one to take out like the next, I guess, like the next form that was going to germinate and create an epidemic of more of these destructive influences.
I have to wonder how much of this is really thought out by the team behind it, and how much of it is because I honestly think, like, if you went, okay, before I say this, for example, like when Zach Galligan talked about how he went to the premiere, and him saving the day wasn't in it, and he was like, Joe Dante, what the fuck? And Joe Dante's like, hey, the movie's called Gremlins. It's not called Billy's Adventure. Like, you're not the fucking hero at the end of the day. It's fucking little gremlin guy. And so that tells me just how much that, you know, maybe he's aware of certain things. But like, I guarantee you that if you went back in time, or even interviewed Christopher Columbus now, and said, hey, China, Red Scare, and everything that we're talking about, did you mean this? And I would hope that like he'd be like, what fucking no, I was like 20 years old and I wanted to raise these little goblins and I didn't know where they're from. I said fucking China. I don't know. I didn't mean any of that. Versus, you know, would he actually be like, actually, so in the 80s, I had a real problem with communism. And this is what I really wanted. I wanted to tell a story about what happens if Kingston Falls is a metaphor for the planet, and and then this is what America is, and like this is why I'm like, okay, cool, but I don't see that. I don't see that, because also, you know how there's certain movies that you can feel what the intention of subtext was. Maybe I'm just stupid, but I've never been aware of that until right now. Maybe, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Has everyone been thinking this and I've just been living in a vacuum? Well, it's news to me,
the impression
man.
I get from Instagram is that most of us have just been kind of like cuddly mogwai, you know? Like,
the Gremlins,
Christmas,
they make mischief.
horror. Who could ask for anything more? I love my Christmas with my horror, you know?
Yeah,
like,
no, and the Gremlins, they make mischief. They laugh, he. They claw you. Like,
But just like, given that they set up so much, particularly in the deleted scenes of scrap scenes. I mean, I know this movie was made at a breakneck pace. They were out running the clock the whole time. Technology was like right there, like they're neck and neck with their technology, going like, oh, we got it. Okay, now we just have to get it on film. Fuck, what a nightmare. And so yeah, there is something to be said as far as like how conscious were they of all that. I've never heard Joe Dante or Chris Columbus like speak out in terms of like, you know, what their influences were, or even if what their subconscious influences might have been. But there are little things like that, those deleted scenes, like all the groundwork they were laying for like the Deagles. Dick Miller, we find out Dick Miller's been like, you know, laid off from his plant, from his macaroni plant or whatever. That, you know, like people in people hurting economically, and also that was largely a thing of the times in the 80s too. In 1980s America was an America in recession, so maybe it was just timely. But the only other thing that kind of, and then I'll drop it, the only other kind of thing that makes me think that it's there, it always sat with me it always resonated with me, and I never really understood why, and I think I came up with a reason. Billy goes to law enforcement and asks them to do something, and they won't believe him that there's like these things that like, you know, wreck things. So he asks them to turn down the lights. They do, because they're just like, fuck, sure, we're not doing anything. Turn off the lights. Next thing we see, Gizmo sitting there with a little American flag, a little U.S. Flag, and he's swinging it. And Billy's trying to warn them and tell them about the process and about the rules and about like what you know, the whole story of like now what risk we're at and everything like that. And all they're doing is sitting there watching this cute little thing and just going like, look at him there, the little patriotic little fella. He's, you know, got the American flag and everything. Yeah, Gucci. And he's going to tickle him, and the other guy's sheriff joking, go like, oh, I'll take your arm off. And Billy is still trying to just kind of let them know, but it multiplies with water, and you hear it in the in the voiceover as like Gizmo's just there twisting the flag. He's just like, hey, get me some water. He's like, oh, I wouldn't, Sheriff. Still in that friendly kind of, I'm talking to my elders and I respect them, Billy Peltzer way. But here you've just been told exactly what the risk is, the sheriff has. And what does he want to do? He wants to get some water. He wants to give it a flag and like decorate it.
Yeah, let's find out.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it all feels like, again, largely a comment on like, you know, the way we as a country, even small town, you know, small, seemingly innocent, you know, unassuming any town America is going to deal with a potential threat if they think it's cute, if they think it's marketable, if they think it's something that isn't a threat. You know, they'll make up whatever kind of story they need to, and even talk about breaking the rules as they're hearing the consequences of what happened.
I don't even know if it's just because it's cute too, but also, and I feel like this became more of a thing in the 90s and 2000s, especially with like the Jackass era of this idea of like, don't do this or this or this because it will result in this, and it's fucked up. They go, okay, let's fucking do it. Why? Because it'll be fucked up.
Yeah.
And even I think I'm bigger and better than the consequences. It's usually the biggest thing. Let's fucking do it. Don't do this, or it will explode. Make it fucking explode. No, no, but like in that same kind of American, like I'm like, well, no, we'll be fucking fine. No, we won't be fucking fine.
Yeah.
And you don't find that out until you actually fucking make the thing explode, you know?
It bespeaks a kind of recklessness and an irresponsibility that, again, I sensed since I was a boy, and felt like also everything with Mr. Futterman's like, you know, xenophobia and everything. It's just kind of like, well, that's what we do. If we have a problem like here, oh, sorry, one more thing. I can't not discuss this because Hoyt Axton here, he's an inventor. All of his shit does not work. And nobody blames Gremlins, you know, nobody. So it's not, again, it doesn't feel like propaganda, like, yeah, that's it, we can't let the foreigners in. It's like, no, the shit we make ourselves doesn't work either. We as a country can't, this is what I feel like it's saying, we as a country cannot handle our own shit, let alone anybody else's. That's what I feel the movie is saying, by and large.
You know, I mentioned this earlier, there are movies that we know.
Yeah.
Or even if we didn't know at the time, over time we've gone and found that you can read into this and that. Sometimes we know it right away. The Dark Knight came out 2008. And instantly we're like, well, it's Gotham City as a microcosm of the US.
Right.
And all the themes that are at play right now. I wasn't prepared when we started this discussion. I thought we were going to be talking about, you know, Kate and the music and the puppets.
I'm sorry.
And not Kingston Falls as the U.S. and a microcosm of all the themes that were going on in fucking the early 80s, let alone any xenophobic racist shit.
I haven't even covered all of it, but we can talk just movie love from here on out.
I'm not complaining. I just wasn't prepared.
I'm sorry.
It would, I'm going to be mad when, a week, a month, years go by, and I have so much more to say on it. But like right now, I'm just sort of learning, going,
absorbing.
What? There's so much about Gremlins I didn't know. I just thought fucking they're mischievous. Spielberg produced it. He's on the fan and it's spinning, She puts it in the fucking blender and it blows up in a microwave. God damn it, Eddie.
I'm sorry. I did not mean to ruin it, because this is the thing. Knowing all of this doesn't ruin it for me. It just kind of makes me... It makes me, because I mean, you're absorbing it all right now, too.
It hasn't changed my opinion.
In time. Yes, in time.
But it's a lot to drop.
I'm so sorry. And like I said, I haven't even addressed all of it. But
no, sorry. It's just funny.
Okay. I won't go into, because I don't have much to go into, but the only other thing that I have as far as like racism is apparently there have been essays, and it was even in an episode of Dear White People, where Tessa Thompson's character... I haven't seen it yet, but apparently she wrote a 15-page essay on why Gremlins is racist against Black people, because it reinforces negative African-American stereotypes, and her professor, I don't know what race her professor is, but doesn't kind of like recognize it as like an actual paper or something, and says like, you calling like Gremlins racist, what's up with that? And she points, I'm paraphrasing the line as I read it, but she basically says that the Gremlins are noisy, love fried chicken, and they go nuts when their hair gets wet. So as her defense for why. And there have been people who have written essays and made, videos and blogged and vlogged and everything. Not just going off that, I think it's been buzzing for a long time. I never saw the Gremlins as racially coded for Black people at all. But again,
but I wish I would like, especially in my 20s and 30s, would love to have read that shit. That sounds
right. But as far as I feel like there's enough evidence to support my anti-corporate, misguided patriotism, to reinforce that's present in the movie too, to keep my enjoyment on an adult level, because I sat through it last night while I was taking these notes, and I enjoyed myself. I had a great time. I still, there's still little things here and there, just logistically we can talk about the film, but we want to talk cinematically. One of the things that I really appreciate and have appreciated since I was a little boy about this movie is when we get the introduction of the rules, just with the voiceover, with the boy and Hoyt Axton. I love the fact that he's like, Joe Dante is using the camera and the frame to kind of like depict exactly what it is that you need to beware of, which makes me feel like this air of danger, because he talks about no bright light, especially sunlight, that'll come. And there's like either a moped or a motorbike with its headlights shining right in the lens. And you see Hoyt Axton, like, being careful around it, like holding the sacred ancient box. And then he says, and also keep him away from water. Don't get him wet. Puddles. The street is littered with puddles. And it's just like, and the thing you must never forget, no matter how much he cries, no matter how much he begs, never feed him after midnight. And there are crates of vegetables just like lining the streets. And I'm just like, you are going to fuck up. The filmmaking tells me you can't escape fucking up. Not that it's inevitable and anybody would, but you are. Because the frame is being crowded with all of these things that you're being told to avoid, and you're Hoyt Axton, you're not doing a very good job. You're just holding a box. And they're also dismissing the kid, going, yeah, whatever, have a Merry Christmas. And then Christmas. So yeah, I appreciate that from the filmmaking standpoint.
I mean, even prior to that, prior to the rules, we have something similar with just him with the voiceover going to the store. That from that to that, is already a prime example to me of just the fact that cinematically, he doesn't get lumped in the same way I talk about like Edgar Wright or Quentin Tarantino, but like Joe Dante really understands the language of cinema and uses it in very clever ways. And you can tell within the first 10 minutes of this movie that Joe Dante is genuinely a film lover, and he's pouring a lot of that into the technique that he's using. Let alone just his choice of colors and use of angles. And if you could see that through a lot of his movies, you could see it in The Howling, you could see it in his part of Twilight Zone. Like, he definitely gets to milk things for the effect and using all the tools of the trade, whether it be for the obvious emotions or like the subtext of something that we're laying the groundwork for. Or something as simple as a laugh, like, finding the femur and like, in the birds,
and also
there's a movie if you want to talk about an American character and fucking exceptionalism and shit. You can unpack a lot in The Burbs.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that in ages. I'll have to rewatch and with fresh eyes.
Go
on.
Are we moving? We've moved past all the serious shit.
Yes, we can talk about like our childhoods.
No, but I'm glad. I was going to mention before when we started talking about deleted scenes, and I went, it's one of the more fascinating deleted scenes because when you watch the movie, and we already touched on this, but it fleshes Mrs. Deagle and the bank out way more thematically. There was a lot more going on than what we got in the final product.
Yes,
in the movie. There's a lady just begging Mrs. Deagle, my husband needs to find a job, and we're hungry, blah blah blah. And then the mom is sad.
Mm-hmm.
She mentions Mrs. Deagle, and it feels like a beat where we're gonna find out what's the mom actually sad about, and then we never do. And in the theatrical cut of the movie, when they're watching the news at the end, when they're like celebrating Christmas and they're all scratched up, and you hear just that, like, and Mrs. Deagle was found dead, and that puts an end to like the chemical company's plans, and you're like, the chemical company's plans for what? Huh? What?
Yeah, right.
Whereas again, you find out that like she laid everyone off, so now they can't afford their homes, so then she's partnering with the bank to kick them out so that the chemical company can buy all their property and build like a new thing. And you're like, that's some shady shit. And especially with eras of chemical plants and regulation and the rise of capitalist intentions versus economic and regulations. I mean, there was a lot to unpack there, but you cut that one scene out, changes everything.
Yeah,
now
absolutely.
It's just there's a lot that, like, considering what was cut out, like Mrs. Deagle still makes it in to have her death scene, but we not like he was cut, but Corey Feldman kind of disappears from the movie. Judge Reinhold disappears from the movie. The bank manager disappears from the movie. I never really noticed that, but I remember the first time watching the deleted scenes, and you find the bank manager dead.
Yes.
And then Judge Reinhold, it's actually a pretty funny scene. He's in the vault, and he's like, I outsmarted them. I locked myself in. And they're like, well, cool. Do you want to come out with us? He's like, come out? Why would I want to come out? I know why. And you're just like, all right. And they close the door on him. But I remember watching that going, oh, yeah. Judge Reinhold just kind of disappears, doesn't he?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, he does just kind of disappear.
Yeah.
The only person I remember being aware of disappearing, and I'm not thrilled with it, but ultimately I end up being okay with it. But it becomes a thing where, like, the mom gets attacked, and they're like, I don't know if it was like a note, or maybe they were, once they already had the script, and maybe they're already filming, they're like, hey, you know how, like, it's pretty much Billy, Gizmo, and Kate for, like, the whole third act of the movie? They're like,
yes,
mom. They're like, oh, shit, the mom. Yeah, right, she gets to stay with someone. Okay, great. So
with the doctor.
He drops her off the doctor. The only thing, I don't like the logic police getting in and ruining my movies,
Ha 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 ha.
And this movie succeeds at its tone and intentions overriding the logic police.
Yes.
It does what it's supposed to do. It sets a very specific tone. However, as you get older, sometimes you just can't help it. This doesn't ruin the movie for me, but I can't help thinking this is the only issue I really allow myself to get realistic on.
Okay.
If I'd already dropped my mom off at someone's house, and the movie just writes her off as cool, safe, and then at the end of the movie, she's fine, right?
Yeah.
But if you were now going to get Kate at the bar, and the town is in chaos, and you're running through people in the streets, and then after that you come out to like a ghost town.
Yeah.
People are dead. I don't know how you keep doing all that and go, my fucking mom okay? But it doesn't come up once. Like, if this town is that fucking quiet, I go to that house at the doctor and I go, is my mom okay? But it doesn't come up at all. It's the old, like, little thing where I'm like,
You know, the movie carried me so well through the action that I never thought of that. So good for you. You're a better son than I. But
I'm also admitting the movie carries me through it. It's only after multiple viewings over many years do I allow myself to think it, but not let it have an effect on me.
See, the only thing about Dr. Molinaro is his name that kind of stood out to me in this particular screening, because it's come up more and more, and I think this is kind of like the epitomal screening for me last night was how much of this shit is happening on Christmas Eve. Like, I thought, okay, wait, it's Christmas Eve, and there's a convention, because she's on the phone with Hoyt, you know, with Rand, while he's off at the invention convention. Yeah. Yes. And it's happening on Christmas Eve, and I'm like, oh my God, what horrible planning. And look how many people are there while he's on the phone. And then I thought, also, Billy's at work with Kate, so the bank is open on Christmas Eve. Then he gets the call that it just hatched, and school is in session on Christmas Eve. And then he goes to the school, and you know, and they're all being let go, I guess, like, everybody have a Merry Christmas. I'm like, God, what a fucking sucky town Kingston Falls is. They make you go to school on Christmas Eve. And then
the town and the bank and everyone is run by atheists.
Well, then what's all that shit about hating Christmas? What, you're Hindu or something? But no, and then they go to this is the last thing with Dr. Molinaro, where he comes in because, you know, mom fights the Gremlins and everything like that. And I will talk about that. I still fucking love that sequence. But
we will talk.
She gets to, you know, he's like, oh, Dr. Molinaro, can we come in, please? And he leaves his mom with her and everything on the assumption. I always just kind of thought, okay, at least she's somewhere with a doctor. Maybe he has a bomb shelter. I don't know. But they have like some kind of secure lockdown place. But the thing that got me was he and his wife were decorating the tree on Christmas Eve. Who the fuck?
You see that sometimes in movies, and I go, huh? Yeah.
Who does that? Like, so it just made me think, like, again, this is what happens when a movie like goes through like multiple rewrites, and they're outrunning the clock, and just, things kind of fall through the cracks. You're like,
stuff. But not actual stuff that you would do on Christmas Eve. But yeah,
exactly. And you're just kind of like, okay, well, you know, maybe the drafts, you know, just got lost. And Joe Dante's just like, I got to make a movie as long as it makes sense, and it does. Good for him, because in a realm of chaos, he ended up actually making, you know, like a really cohesive, understandable flick that, you know, I can still enjoy. And even though I recognize all this, I didn't recognize this as a kid. I didn't even recognize it like really, I guess, in my late teens and my 20s, as I started to reignite my love with both of these movies. But now, you know, looking at it with a critical eye, I'm just always like, oh, I always noticed that, all this happens on Christmas Eve, but like all of it, like, so yeah, that's the only thing about the doctor that really kind of stood out to me. It's just like, who the fuck decorates their tree on Christmas Eve?
I never thought about the fact that they're in school and all that. I mean, the Christmas convention, I mean, LA Comic-Con has been on Halloween, but that's not a religion or a bank holiday. But
exactly.
I have to imagine the convention people are just, I think they might be some of those people that, you know, just think, hey, you know, not everybody's Christian or Catholic. We don't all celebrate Christmas.
Right.
And you know what? I bet you the convention was available those days. The convention center? Probably really easy to book it.
Yeah, probably. Okay, yeah. Thank you. You're giving me some like logic that I can, like, you know, just, you know, put in my. I don't need it, but it's there if I you know, want to refer to it. But okay. So we touched on, or unless you want to go ahead, please.
Well, I have so much. Some of them are little, but I do want to bring up one thing.
What?
It's the only. I brought up my one. It doesn't, you know, my one Logic Police. But
yeah,
I didn't realize this until about a couple of years ago. But I just, it's fine. It's a movie thing, whatever. It's a hand wave. I went to Big Bear, and I had these like I call them like my camping shoes, and they're like water resistant, you know. And
Yeah.
we got these inflatable. I bought snow pants, you know, because we're gonna be rolling around the snow a lot. But one day we went just up into this like mountain, and we got an inner tube, and we just started like inner tubing, and like it was kind of dangerous because we were bobbing, weaving between trees and shit. It wasn't the smartest idea, but it's fun. But I'm just wearing jeans and like a jacket, and my shoes. And the one thing I notice, especially when I was younger, I grew up in this Virginia where it snowed in the winter.
Yeah.
If you're not wearing, you know, exactly snow gear, you get wet. Like if you lay down in the snow, it's made of fucking water. It gets through your shirt. Your jeans have a little wet thing up the leg.
Oh yes.
So when I
Terrible.
see the carolers and then the gremlins come out of the snow and shit, and I'm like, how are you not multiplying right now? How are none of these gremlins fucking multiplying when they have cold frozen water all over their
Friction
bodies and nose?
too. Friction. Yeah. They were mammals. Like, you
Like,
know, they
like I know when you look at the movie, it's fucking fake movie snow. So I'm sure they
yeah.
weren't even thinking about it. But when I look at that, I'm like, but you're just covered in water right now. Fuck it, whatever.
Also, I
Not enough
think
to derail the movie.
no. But you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because as far as like little logistical things, I feel like this movie helped to kind of build up to at least lay the foundation, or you know, the foundation is composed of this movie a little bit. For that forgiving thing, you always, you know, discuss with me, you always attribute to me, which I'm not going to argue, but I mean, you know, just like, or patience or, you know, whatever,
Yes.
just kind of
You're
like,
forgiving of a
well,
lot. I'm forgiving of the X-Men movies. Yeah.
yes. So, but one thing that I think got introduced with this movie was like, here they said, I mean, a lot of people criticize like, don't feed them after midnight. Well, it's always after midnight.
Right.
And they start getting into the logistics of it, arguing like, what if you cross time zones where you could do all that? But one of the things that I always felt like I kind of just gave myself, even as a boy, I was just kind of like, after midnight, probably by sunrise is safe though. You
Yeah.
know, because it's no longer after midnight. Like now it's daytime.
I did that too.
So yeah.
Like how far? Because I don't know. Like maybe like afternoon is definitely safe because it's a 12-hour marker, right?
I also, okay. In terms of things affecting us when we were kids, I still can't really bear the scene where the water gets dumped on Giz. The way he screams.
Yeah. Uh-oh, Eddie's feeling feelings.
Eddie's locked up. Eddie just can't. Eddie needs to keep telling himself that's a puppet. Those are just little balls of like Play-Doh or something, and then
there's
they
2 or 3
start
guys off on the
pumping.
side.
Exactly. Then they
This.
start getting the fur balls that they inflate by blowing into a tube, and I need to just kind of like, and also it's over. It's over relatively,
Yeah.
you know, quickly. But that's one of the first introductions of like, and I watched it multiple times. I mean, I have the movie basically committed to memory, and have for, you know, basically like ever since I watched it with regularity as a child. I've never been able to lose that. But I still, when that happens, I still get angry at Corey Feldman. And you know what I really, really get angry about? His it's not apathy, but just, I guess his dismissal of the whole situation once the screaming is over.
Oh yeah. I've
He just
always
gets
wondered,
up and
what's that? Okay, because allow me to go on a little, not rant, but
please.
prior to that,
Yeah.
I think Corey Feldman is wonderful and honestly gives one of my favorite performances of his career when he first meets Gizmo.
Yeah.
You want to talk about actors presenting truth? Like he, at such a young age, completely believable as like believing in that moment that Gizmo isn't a puppet, but that's a creature, that he's a kid, and that's how a fucking kid would react. And he's like, you blink? Can you do that? I'm like, this.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant child performance.
Yeah.
It's I mean, even more than any other, like he reacts to it. He makes me believe Gizmo's real in that fucking scene.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's so great in that moment, And then just like a few minutes later, to see something as outrageous as it multiplies.
Yes.
I don't even necessarily blame him as an actor or him as a character. I'm just like, I don't get from a writing stand. Like, I don't understand. I always wondered, was there, when you justify something in your head and you make the moment work for you, you do the work. We talk about that a lot, like you having to do the work. A few years ago, the only thing I'd come up with is that like, it kind of maybe freaked him out. Like, what the fuck? But I don't want to like let on. So I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go over here and play cool. Like, that's interesting. No, really, that's interesting.
Kids do that, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think he'd be genuinely disinterested. I always felt like it was a front, and I had to figure out, well, what's it a front for? What's the lie about?
You know what's interesting now, though? He's America.
Oh. I thought about
just kind of like,
I didn't think about America, but I thought about what
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new ones. Can I have one? That's my concern. What about me? A bottom line, what about me? And it's like, well, okay, you won't give me one. Well, I'm just gonna go back to this comic book and just go, well, it's neat. I'm serious. It's neat. Like, I'll double down on it.
Well, then, yeah, that's why he's not interested, because he can't have one. I think we just found it.
He was, yeah, maybe, but he was. That sucks, though. I hate that, because that's not the same kid who, like,
right,
is interact. That feels so genuine and so cool. And I feel like if I were that kid and I were the reason the jar dropped and the reason he made that noise, and then the reason there's all these weird, and I try to tickle the one with the stripe and it tries to bite me, I'd be like, Billy, I'm sorry. There's not even an apology. There's not even
well, it's a fucking accident.
No. If I make an animal suffer and it belongs to somebody else, fuck me.
But knocking over the thing, but not the consequence of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but one saving grace for that character though with Pete, you mentioned seeing him again when he's like because he's one of the people who does kind of drop off, but we do see him fighting the Gremlins.
Yeah, one shot.
Yeah. In with the slingshot and everything. Yeah, true. We see him in the school. Not really for any reason, but
actually, I always felt bad for him. He's trying to talk to the teacher. Was it Mr. Hanson? He's like, yeah, but Mr. Hanson.
Yeah.
Hanson, fuck off, kid. Like,
yeah. It's like, oh well, Merry Christmas. But that's what you get for treating Gizmo that way. And Mr. Hanson's gonna get his in a minute. But what I liked about that sequence with the Gremlins, which is probably another thing that contributed to me not being more scared of this movie as a kid, because there were certainly elements of things that like accesses to my imagination that could have made me scared, but the fact that I actually got to see a kid fighting them off, kind of no problem. He's got a slingshot. They're not, I mean, if he let them in the house, they'd probably try to kill him or try to whatever, hurt him. But the fact that he can stave them off with a slingshot and by cutting Christmas lights and shit like that,
and how he did fucking go ahead. I'm sorry.
They're kind of defenseless against this minimal what's the word I'm looking for? Defense. Defenseless against his offense.
They're threatening when we need them to be, but also like the movies. First of all, it's not to be taken too seriously.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they can hold a gun and they can jump on you and they can bite and they can scratch and holy shit. And then other times you're like, no, I could just fucking run up and kick that thing.
Yeah.
Shoot a slingshot at it.
Yeah. Fine. No. Oh, it's just sexual aggression. He's just trying to flash me. I'll kick him.
Right.
Doesn't happen in this movie, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. It's the payoff in the second one. I am always shocked that a kid with scissors doesn't electrocute himself when he cuts a lit. Yeah. I'm just like, okay, that's movie magic. Because there's a version of that movie of.
And he's just on
that's
the floor.
Why he's not in the rest of the movie.
Maybe there were rubber handles on the scissors. I'll have to get a closer look on those scissors.
But, I'm going to tell you a little thing I used to do.
Please do.
No, you ever just play a little what if game in your head where water spills on Gizmo, he multiplies. In Gremlins 2, water lands on Gizmo, he multiplies. I understand in both cases that the idea of don't get them wet is because not only do they multiply, but they multiply into little fuckers.
Yeah.
They're shitty when they multiply. But something I just used to wonder about when I was a kid. is that the water that gets knocked over on him is water that's got paintbrushes in it, like it's dirty water, like it's paint water. And then in Gremlins 2, the water from the fountain gets on a painting, and when you see it trickle down, the water is all dark when it drips onto Gizmo. And I used to wonder as a kid, is it because it's like dirty paint water that makes them shitty? I
Oh.
wonder if just like normal ass water got on Gizmo, would they also be shitty, or would they be all right? And it's the dirty paint water that did it. And obviously,
I
it's just
never
the warning
thought
to the
of
old man.
that.
Yeah, but I remember being like 10 or 11 going, oh, both movies, it's paint water. That's weird.
It's also irresponsible. Don't leave your brushes in a jar of water, guys. It's going to ruin your brushes. It's going to just
Yeah.
take right away from their shelf life. But
I would say,
in addition,
Billy's a shitty artist who won't amount to much, but he ends up going to NYC and,
right.
working for
He's got big things in the clamp industries. But in this movie, though, that's interesting. I never thought about that. I mean, there is still the warning, and also, there's something to be said of the water that the Gremlins dip into, making more little fuckers. But maybe that's just because they're little fuckers. I also always had this fan fiction kind of like question in my head about what would happen if accidentally Gizmo did eat after midnight.
Me too.
What he'd have to turn into a gremlin, obviously.
But would he be shitty?
Yes. Would he change? Would he become like evil and this?
Yeah.
Would he or would it just be like, what? Like,
yeah. Would he have a sense of mischievousness to him, but not be evil, or would he just be good? Like, I always wondered that too. I always wondered what he'd look like too.
Yeah.
How much of his innate cuteness do you try to translate into gremlin form?
I'm guessing the big eyes would certainly transfer.
But also, every time I think about that, especially when I was younger, I always say, but I don't want to see that, so stop thinking about it. I don't ever want to see him. I don't want that to happen to him.
I would never want it to be caused, but now that we live in the age of where comic books are kind of like mainstream and common knowledge, and people understand multiverses and things like that, I wouldn't mind a little fanfic or a little even comic that goes into like an alternate universe Gizmo that has turned into a gremlin already, and seeing what he's like.
An old Marvel's What If.
Yeah, why not?
Well, I
Earth
think
2 from DC.
There you go.
Yeah.
They're doing an animated, and I'm pretty sure it's a prequel series.
Oh, really?
Warner Brothers is doing it, and
okay.
I think it's coming to HBO Max. I know it's aimed towards kids.
Oh.
And I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the old man when he's younger, and Gizmo.
Oh. All right.
And I think it's going to be computer animated, and I think it's for kids.
Okay. Well, but like for kids, the way like the Witches reboot was for kids, because then I'm still kind of on board.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because there are certain things that are like for kids, like that Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous or whatever, where I'm like, well, I want to watch that. Like the Clone Wars is for Star Wars is for kids, versus like the Rocketeer show where you're like, oh, that's for fucking little kids.
Right.
That's not for me.
Okay, well, I hope that they capitalize on the fact that there's still so much adult fandom surrounding, the character, so they don't spoon feed. I mean, here, look at me. I sound like such an old person. I hope they don't spoon feed these kids the Gremlins. They need to learn like we did. Oh, because that was one other thing I wanted to bring up in terms of like your reference to parental backlash. It made me think about Willy Wonka, because I remember thinking it's a similar setup in that the rules are established right away, and if you just follow the rules, you can avoid all this shit. If you just are a responsible kid, you don't have to suffer the fate of the Gremlins. You don't have to get sucked up in the chocolate pipe. You don't have to, just do as you're told, and everything will be fine. And I feel like kids understood that. I think that's why it was such a hit with kids, in addition to just like it's puppets and cute Gizmo and, and Toy Store. And
the truth is,
if
you follow the rules, you don't have a fucking movie.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, it seems true of Willy Wonka. If all the kids survived, like what a boring movie that would be.
In that sense, are both of those movies also, is there a lesson to be learned about, hey, follow the fucking rules when someone tells you to follow the fucking rules?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like kids get that. It's always the
Well,
parents who are just like, my child. You
yeah.
know?
Well, Willy Wonka definitely, but I never really thought about that too much with Gremlins because I was too busy having a good time.
I
You
always thought
talked
about the rules.
you talked about the body snatchers being on TV, and I
Yeah.
don't think there's anything more to read into this beyond that. But I do like the idea that Mom's watching It's a Wonderful Life when Jimmy Stewart is running through the snow streets by the theater, and
Hmm.
then Billy and Kate run from the bar through the snowy streets in the movie theater.
Yeah.
We have the car race. We have a car race. We have
Hmm.
pods opening. We have pods opening. I like that. I can't call it foreshadowing because it's too fucking on the nose, but I do like that they do that.
I do have a question though.
Okay.
Why is Gizmo hearing that Clark Gable and whoever it is who he's with, I think it was called To Please a Lady, the movie. But he watches where he's just like, she's like, something about like, like that particular man has a particular dame or something like that. Why is that playing in his head when he's driving the car? Aside from the fact that he's driving the car and he saw the movie about him driving the car, but it's about like doing something for a particular dame. Why is Gizmo hearing that? That bothered me
Because
this time.
two answers. One, because it's a Barbie car, and Barbie's is I don't know. No, because in his mind, Billy's his dame, and he doesn't. He's a little mogwai. He doesn't see fucking binary cisgender norms.
That's true. We do, they call him a he, but we never really find out.
But it doesn't matter what Gizmo is. All that matters is how he views Billy and what Billy means to him, and that's his
Yeah.
dame. I don't think he's doing it for fucking Kate.
No. Maybe it's also just like to kind of be like emblematic of like the programming
Right.
that Billy has done to Gizmo, letting him watch television and everything like that. How it's like, I
simple,
saw it on TV, so now I'm going to reenact it. Yeah.
Because I mean, it definitely is more. It makes more sense in Gremlins too, with like survival.
Yeah, certainly.
Gotta become more. Like
yes.
I understand why he's remembering that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, one little thing going back to just Corey Feldman and touching on something earlier that I want to kind of sidestep into. You were talking about the idea that Billy's friends with this little boy and it being a holdover when he was younger. But to me, there was such an innocent little age in the 80s, to be a child in the 80s watching 80s media, where I just thought it's normal. I hadn't experienced it yet, but like little boys can be friends with adults. Like that's just a thing. Like he doesn't go, ew, you're fucking little kid, fuck off. It's just like, that's his neighborhood friend, Billy.
Right. Maybe he's his neighbor.
In high school, and he's friends with a fucking like 60-year-old scientist, a disgraced nuclear physicist. And I just go into his garage and play guitar because I'm in high school. I'm a high school boy, friends with an old man. These are things that happened in the 80s. And I never thought it was weird until you get older. Not to quote John Mulaney, but like, a disgraced nuclear physicist, friends with like a teenage boy.
Yeah, right.
That's not normal.
Right.
That's a language to me of movies. We don't think about it as a cinematic language, but there is something that doesn't happen very often unless it's like your relative. Like, like I have a younger cousin, so he gets to hang out with like an older guy, but I don't ever go, oh, well, there's little Timmy. Time to go hang out with Timmy.
You're right.
But that's, and I can remember that even as far as I remember Rushmore was 1998 and Election was 1999.
Yeah.
And both of those movies feature functioning relationships between like a high schooler and an adult. And it's never, they're just friends or even they're just enemies, but it's played totally straight. Like this is perfectly normal. Max Fisher is friends with, Mr. Bloom.
And even around that time, I'm thinking like Pleasantville with Tobey Maguire and Jeff Daniels.
Yeah.
There's a link there. I mean, he works for him, but it definitely goes beyond business, like all the things that they talk about and, exchange ideas and things like that. Huh. Interesting.
I wasn't totally friends with them, but I mentioned that I had my first job, when I worked at a comic book shop for a day. I used to go to that comic book shop and I used to really, I don't want to say idolize, but I revered these two people behind the counter.
Mm-hmm.
was a lady and a dude. And the dude, specifically just maybe because he was a guy, but, you know, he's very quiet and soft-spoken. But, like, not only did I get to work there for a day, but, like, I got to, like, be with them. I get to, like, you know, work with them and be their buds. So, like, I get that it's definitely more of a child who wants to be with the cooler older kids than
Sure.
a grown man who wants to hang out. And I never hung out with them outside of there. They didn't go like, "Hey, you want to come bowling with us?" But, like, I don't know. There was something residual that made me, as a kid, still want to, like, hang out with the older kid. The other thing that's very 80s, besides those relationships, is the idea of because you get older and it's not a thing, but to be an inventor as a profession.
Yeah.
Because everything is so specific. Like, I'm a web designer, I'm a software guy, or I am like people who have skills at making, you know, I know people who can make, like, weaponry versus people who can I know a guy who makes fucking robots, all sorts of things, but they never refer to themselves as just an inventor, nor
No.
do any of them are so all encompassing of so many different traits that they just become inventor. But I loved it in the 80s. Like, well, hello, my name's Rand Peltzer. I'm an inventor, you know. And I remember as a kid, like, that's how it is. You're an inventor. Cartoons, movies, you're an inventor. You're a scientist. Doc Brown, you know, both produced by Spielberg.
Yeah.
And even though we think of Doc Brown as a scientist, also, like, he's got all these clocks and he's doing experiments and the little machine that feeds Einie on time and, like, made a giant speaker. Like, there's constantly shit that he's making. He gets stuck in the 1885 and he makes a fucking refrigerator. Like, he's an inventor. Spielberg in the 80s produced inventor characters.
Yes.
I thought it was normal as a kid, but I watch it now at 40 and I'm like, this is nonsense. Oh, you know, Dad and his inventions. Like, that's okay, sure, Dad and his inventions. But I love that part of the 80s, that Amblin era of, you know, you go over to someone's house and, like, if the thing didn't work and, you know.
I loved, as a kid, I remember I wanted my house, even though none of them worked, and, you know, like, visibly, like, none of them worked. The smokeless ashtray, the eggs, the you know, the the juicer, which is one of my favorite sequences. The phone that she tries to answer with remote control. And the bathroom buddy just spraying toothpaste all over and everything like that. And Zach Galligan almost loses it. But but I fucking love. As a kid, I remember looking at all those inventions and just thinking, like, I want those. I don't care if they don't work. They're fun. They light up and they're different than just, like, the regular normal shit. Like,
breaking eggs regular is for suckers. I got a machine that does this, like,
with a chicken head on it. It looks like a fucking toy. I want that shit. Yeah. I remember
wanting the bathroom buddy because I'm like, yeah, all your shit is right there. And then you're like,
but I always thought about, like, once I was old enough to actually kind of, like, entertain the idea of, like, shaving when I was in junior high. I remember just thinking, that's so awkward as hell, though, holding a whole contraption with your razor to your face.
I always hope, like, especially the toenail clippers, I'm like, do they retract out of there? Because that's obnoxious. In fact, it's not just that he's an inventor. Him and Doc Brown. I specifically wrote down domestic inventor because they're not going off to their lab or their job. Like, they're at home, and the idea that in your quote unquote, like, 80s American suburbia kind of house, within each house there could be an inventor who lives there. You know, and, like, this guy made a time machine in his basement, and, like, the idea of the domesticated. That the magical is right inside your neighborhood, you know, like.
Exactly. Yeah. But also, I forgot to leave. Every now and then, when I just drip hot fudge from a distance high enough, I think about that coffee maker. Oh. And if I just, like, put, like, you know, chocolate milk in my chocolate in my milk, you know, and then I just kind of stir it. I just have the urge to just kind of go, what's the matter with this? But I also want to talk about in terms of, like, design, because they had to craft all those inventions. That was fun. But I also love, and I don't think it gets enough credit, because Rick Baker did the sequel, and people tend to just go, oh my God, Rick Baker. And I understand completely. I agree.
Oh, yeah.
That said,
but that first movie.
In this movie.
Yeah.
Because I went back and I looked at it with a critical eye, just kind of, like, thinking, like, but I remember really buying Gizmo as, like, a breathing, living creature. And I noticed even like in the sequence where Billy's playing the keyboard just to kind of mimic and capture Gizmo's little song, there are these shots from the rear. I always love details like this. And you have to be familiar enough with the movie to catch them sometimes, or at least I do. But just like this, it's lit from the rear and you can just see the light being cast through Gizmo's ears and you can see the veins. They went to the trouble of creating like an anatomy for this creature. And and I appreciate that. I noticed that every time we're close enough to make out like the eyes and the nose, and maybe even around the mouth, there's like moisture, like an actual animal, you know, like a dog or a cat.
Oh,
which
too
again,
much moisture when they're eating the chicken. God damn.
Well,
it.
yeah. Well, that's not just moisture. That's
I
not
don't
just
get
moisture.
grossed out. I don't get grossed out by much, but them eating in close up is fucking disgusting.
Oh, I just laugh.
No.
It is gross. I mean, but we get Gizmo there going, ah,
well,
you know,
especially
like
when and you know, because they're obviously they have a lot of the gizmos that are about this big, and then they have their inserts of what is a giant fucking gizmo that allows the and if you want to be an asshole, you can notice how dense his hair is in close-up and then how it doesn't match how not as dense
you're like, not at all. He's like he's got like this long furry like whatever in close-ups, and then he looks all smooth and soft like you know boo-boo. But but I appreciate I really did appreciate all the efforts on the part of the creative team, like especially like, you know, again, like with the time crunch and everything. Like I thought, I mean, even again, I don't know what it looks like to kids nowadays, but when I was a kid, yeah, I recognize that the stop motion, when there's like thousands of them on the street, the very nature of their movement was different than it was when they were just puppets. I could recognize that, but it didn't ruin the movie for me. It didn't pull me out and make me any kind of like, I just sat there and transfixed, just thinking, look at all the different ways you can make Gremlins. And also my dad was a huge cinephile, so he was always kind of like there perched on my shoulder, just kind of like, you know, they do that, and, you know, kind of explaining to me in a way that, you know, as much as a kid can kind of like understand. Like he knew I loved Gumby. So he knew if he told me that it's like the same kind of like thing that they do to make Gumby move, I'd be like, oh, that's really cool. And I have missed stop motion animation, you know, back in the way, like the choppy kind of Rankin Bass form that I mean, I still adore, you know, Leica films and things like that, but
and Kyoto brothers are still doing things. They have a new Netflix special out. Alien Xmas. So like a 45-minute Kyoto Brothers stop motion.
Oh wow. Okay, I got to get Netflix again then. I've been riding the HBO Max wagon, so.
Side tangent, but I hope but like the fingers crossed thing, I guess they've been talking to Netflix about Killer Clowns 2. And I think the hope is if Alien Xmas, you know, generates enough views that they like, hey, we want to be in business with the Kyoto Brothers, you know.
Oh,
so cool. Everyone go watch Alien Xmas.
Yes, stream it now if you can.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I want my Chucky series too. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I have so many random little things.
Go for it.
Let's go for some little things. I'll just random side story. I forget which shot it is, but there's I forget what it used to be called, but they renamed it in Seattle. It's now just called the Museum of Pop Culture. And they have, if you've never been, it's fucking great. They have like a fantasy section, a horror section, like a sci-fi section, and then like rotating exhibits. They still have, they had a big Nirvana thing, and now it's like a permanent but smaller Nirvana exhibit. But one of the things they have in there is a Gremlins 1 Gizmo puppet, and it is eroded to shit over time. You get a lot of these, you know, foam things, but also the expression on its face is like, so when it's eroded and it's like it is horrific to look at. And I had to.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I think I took a photo. I'll send it to you someday. It's fucked up.
Thank you, please. Oh my god, I'll be terrified.
But I was watching Gremlins recently with Tracy, and he makes that exact face, and we're like, oh, thank God, that's like it's one of the, because there are a few. There's like a face that they.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And one of them is like, oh, and we're like, at least thank fucking God that was a specific face and not something that happened to its face over time.
No.
It
Yeah.
just really fucked us up. He looks horrendous. He looks horrendous.
Is it when Stripe jumps in the pool at the YMCA? He does one of these when he sees that.
I think that might have been it.
Okay.
Random. Also, that one shot of him falling in the water.
No.
I don't want to say it scared me, but like when I was a child, like that bothered me. That unsettled me. So many other times I see like a human in the frame, or I feel like I'm watching a puppet, but it's not half Muppeted out of frame, and it's in a completely believable environment, like a wine, like everything about that. I'm just like, ooh, that for some reason that really haunted me when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah, it's
That
in a
was
fixed
believable.
position, but it doesn't look like a statue. It looks like it is clenching. Like,
Yeah, it definitely feels like a creature, and it feels tangible in that moment. Speaking of,
that's when the score kicks in with the meow. Oh, fuck me. Go on.
Also, I love the idea that I had a point before, but I'm going to just leave the point. There was when it's not when they multiply, it's when they hatch, like out of the pods, smoke comes out. And also we see like light. You see the green light.
Yeah.
I love how extra the Gremlins are. They're very theatrical. They have their own lighting, and they have their own fog machines. And then when he jumps in the pool, you're like, oh shit. And it's like all the fog and all the lighting. I just like that they are, to me, they're this close from like Spaceballs, like the chest burster. You could have all that fog and all that light, and then just like a gremlin and a top hat, and just starts going down the stairs. Because that's all they need is like a glitter jacket. You've got your lights and you've got your fog.
There's also that punk rock aspect with Stripe, you know, like the whole like it was like because punk rock was the height of kind of like anarchy and representation.
Yes,
and certainly in mainstream media.
When I was
in mainstream media, yeah.
Yeah, you know how you knew that Johnny Five wasn't messing around in 2? When he got a mohawk.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you saw people have them in movies, it was always to communicate something extreme has happened. Yeah. I even go to Nightmare 3 when in my dreams I'm beautiful and bad. Yeah. But no, there's always been that strange showmanship, even if it's like a vaudeville routine they're doing. It's almost like there's so many things, and more so in the sequel too, but there's even things, okay, in this movie I think about like the card game when they're in Kate's bar, and you know, like that one has donned Mrs. Deagle's wig and put red lipstick to mimic us and everything like that, to appropriate our culture, like take that America, but also is talking in a voice like you know? And
specifically, I think I always thought she's appropriating, like, quote, like, not, I don't want to call them norms, but gender norms. Sure. I like that Stripe. She's like, well, it's a gremlin. We don't know what the fuck it is, but I like that it chooses, like, I'm gonna be your mall. Like, you're the bad guy, and I'm your mall. And I'm at your right side, and like I got my little coat, like,
and I'm gonna help you cheat. I'm gonna look at other cards, and I'm gonna whisper to you in a little woman voice, because this is what that
other fucker's cheating.
Right.
He's pulling out the extra ace, and she's narking.
Right. But
she's keeping it legit on the up and up.
Yeah, and laughing at the gunfire, which is always customary in cheating at card games. No, but I absolutely
go on.
But I absolutely there's that, and then I'm sure there's other examples that I can't think of right now. But I love that they develop beyond just kind of these, because the first way we meet them. Okay, talk about being scared. When I was a kid, and the not seeing was it totally worked for me. Just seeing like the hand, and seeing like, you know, even the hands coming out of the cocoon and stuff like that as they're digging out and everything. when Gizmo's just sitting there scared of him. I'm looking at the cocoons and thinking, God, what must they look like? And when we finally get the reveal of Billy like leaning up against that cabinet, and out it comes and makes that horrible noise, and it looked dry.
Yeah.
Like it looked dry and scaly, so not quite reptilian, because even when reptiles are dry, they look smooth. You know, they look like they got some moisture to them, then you touch them and they're just cool and smooth, lovely. But they look like they're going to be rigid and rough and disgusting to touch. And you don't want that near you. And it always made me jump when I was a kid. And then finally the moment we really get to take a good look at one is when his mom goes into the kitchen and we see that one like eating her cookie and get the ear and get the thread of the growl and all of that. But at that point, there's still like these weird little infestation, you know, like, I mean, like things you just want to get rid of. You know, they feel like germs, and I love the fact that they get to assume personalities and kind of like, and even just kind of like mimic us. Like they kill us and then kind of pull our clothes on and do impressions of us.
They go caroling and they go to the movies and they put on leg warmers and they start dancing.
All totally inventive. Some of them are watching TV. Some of them are just doing some of them are just naked and just kind of like, I like music.
Yeah.
You know?
and to that extreme, you also have this one who's like, I'm somber at the bar.
Yes.
Dora, just taking my moment. It's already funny just because of the moment and the push in of like this serious gremlin.
Yes,
that could be it, and the joke is over and I'm done. But then they elevate it. And it's so amused with itself.
That's when I know I'm in a movie that I love too. It's just like a puppet with a puppet, you got me.
Yeah. But yeah, no, they definitely don't come out the gate acting just like us.
Yeah.
In fact, they're only scary the first few kind of scenes because that's when they actually kind of behaving like horror creatures. And I would even argue that, I mean, generally speaking, when you talk about horror Christmas movies, there's a lot of laughs, and it's PG, but it's still creatures killing people in a town, so it counts as horror. But that when the one that Mr. Hansen has gets out for a few minutes, that movie is just
horror,
a horror movie.
Yes.
And that's when you know that Joe Dante has another example of like he's a film lover who really knows the language of things, because the mood, the lighting, just the way the camera moves across the classroom, and the fact that you have the projection
with the beating heart on it.
Heart, and he's reaching under the desk. That's just great, good old-fashioned horror suspense and build-up.
Mm-hmm.
But also, about a minute so later, when Billy walks into the room, I remember to this day and still now, when he comes in and we just see Mr. Hansen's ass with the needle in it, it just feels like that gets a reaction out of me like every time, because it's not that he was mauled. It's also that we don't see him face up dead. The fact that he's face down, it takes away a sense of humanity, and the fact that there was a choice with that's a point. That's everything about it is it's a creature, but it's an intelligent creature, and it has vengeance, and it makes choices, and it understands poison, and the fact that something that isn't humane understands a human level of thinking and attack, that fucked me up as a kid.
Well,
and then they're watching Snow White, and it's okay.
Right. Yes. No, but what I love about that is also I never even saw it as vengeance so much as like, this gremlin has a sense of justice, because he was stuck with that needle when you told him it wasn't going to hurt, and he wouldn't let his arm go, and you didn't feed him. You are the reason. Like, okay, also I'm sorry.
That's vengeance.
I have to be angry at Mr.
Hansen.
Needle. What kind of a motherfucker doesn't feed I mean, there's a lot of them, I'm sure, with their lab animals, but has a lab animal, doesn't feed it, and then like takes 2 bites of a sandwich, leaves it just on the table like overnight, not like, oh, I'm going to take my corn chips, good night, whatever. And it's hungry. And you're caring for this thing that you're running tests on. Again, the dehumanization and this like kind of like, corporate America thing. But like,
not just leaves it in front of an animal. Forget the animal. Who doesn't finish a sandwich and just leaves it and walks away? Fucking throw it away, you weirdo.
Exactly. I hate it. I hate everything about it. But what I really, really hate is the fact that that I even though I feel bad, because the first victim of the movie We've talked about this happening before. It's been widely, discussed and addressed. Black characters being the first to kind of like be kicked off. He's the first character who gets killed, and he does happen to be black. Problem is, that doesn't make me feel bad for him because of all the neglect and because of the it's almost taunting. Like, that is torture to an animal that is hungry in a cage, to like stick it with a needle and say it's just a little blood test, you'll never miss it. You know what? Well, you must be hungry. Well, good night.
Yeah, he's not such an asshole, but he is definitely ignorant of things.
Yeah, well, insensitive, certainly insensitive. Yes. And then like when I see the needle, I don't necessarily think about vengeance so much as like, there is a sense of justice I get from it. Like, you did kind of ask for it, buddy. I mean, again, we don't know if he would have been as vindictive towards you had you taken good care of him as a mogwai, and then he turns into a gremlin. We still don't know. We don't have the answer to that. Like, if you get a mogwai that is not Gizmo and you treat it right, or if you get a mogwai that is from Gizmo and not from paint water, and is it going to be a good mogwai and then turn into a gremlin that is like, got kind of a benevolent side, but kind of like a Frankenstein monster or something like that,
For me, it's also, there's just something primitive, and that's just me personally. I think that's just my bullshit, and it's not just that I don't like needles, which I don't. No. I think I really have a problem with poison being injected into people as a thing in movies, because I also had the same reaction the first time and every time I watched Terminator 2, when Sarah Connor's got her fucking doctor and she takes the thing, she puts the needle in and she pulls it out. He's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, what are you going to do? And when she's got him in the hallway and she says, I'm going to fill him, I'm going to pump him full of this shit. The fact that she calls it shit, like, I became very hyper aware of just like, oh God, it's a foreign object. It's just not supposed to go in the blood. Ugh. I don't like it. The fact that the gremlin's like, I mash you in the butt and you're dead.
Yeah.
I know, although, even though they don't have human traits, or as what we consider human traits in the first movie, they do inherently, not only do they inherently know some English, but one of the first, it's that gremlin at the high school who goes, caca. Like, they know caca right out of the pod.
He has been in a box listening to school children.
Exactly.
So maybe
I just always chalked up to, like, it's kind of cartoony logic, but still, they know caca.
Yeah. Can we talk about the mom?
Yes, let's talk about the mom. Do you want to start, or can I start?
You go for it.
Yeah, let me go, because you're probably going to have more thoughts on it than I do.
Only a little bit, but go.
Here's what really works for me. There are so many movies where women, sometimes foolish or young men, but usually women, can be depicted as being out of their element to a certain degree. Even if they are, I don't know, a 25-year-old bank teller, but when there's a killer in their house, you know that, like, they are already at a disadvantage, just the way maybe they're played, that they aren't built for this the way the killer or the monster is built for this,
Sure.
Even though in real life, when push comes to shove, you may not be an expert in karate or anything, but when it comes to maybe having to take care of yourself, you can find the focus to do it. And I like the fact that they didn't make her, before the scene or during it, any sort of like, oh, well, what am I gonna do? And I love that she grabs the knife and you can see everything in her fucking face that, like, I'm going to do precisely what I need to do to take care of shit. And I'm actually kind of going down this hallway on the offensive. This is after the kitchen, like when she's leaving, that fucking look on her face,
Yeah.
But even the choice, she got the warning from Billy. She goes upstairs. She hears the laughter, and she already knows, like, that's not good laughter.
Yeah.
But she doesn't become fucking Rambo. But what she becomes is a believable human and a believable woman, and I adore the movie for that. She shines in that scene.
Yeah.
And she also, they don't make her bumbling and out of her element. They also don't overcompensate and have her doing fucking kung fu. She, like, does kind of just like reach over and turns the machine on. Like,
right.
she manages to spray it just to get it back far, she does all the things that are believable enough that she fucking holds her own, though, in the way that Lord knows I would hope. This goes beyond gender. I would hope I hold my own the same way she does, and that's what makes her such a good female character in that movie.
I agree.
Yeah.
One thing that always even resonated with me, I always thought about like her it's a it's like a footnote in the scene when they first meet Gizmo, and you just hear her kind of going like, "Oh, I hope he's housebroken," and and the way when the cocoons show up, and she's just like, "What are they?" And he's just like, "They're the Mogwai, I guess, except for Gizmo." She's like, and she's going down the list. She's just like, "Did you get them wet or something?" And just like, "Did you feed them after midnight?" And she asks in a mom way, like, "You fed them after midnight, didn't you?" You know, like, I'm asking you, but really I'm telling you. Yeah. You fed them after midnight. And then, and what I love about that moment that you just described with the knife also is, in addition to just kind of like going on the offensive, there is something about it that feels, and it's in her performance, and maybe it's just me reading into it, but I always, even as a boy, I remember thinking like, I felt like she was thinking, I knew it was going to come to this. My husband brings these fucking things home, and they have rules, and
Billy said it,
and Billy breaks
breaks
all three of them. Also, because let me say also just a little side note: Billy is not the most responsible man-child in the world, because the night he gets Gizmo, he already breaks the bright light rule and gets him hurt. He cuts his head open and has to bandage him up. It's one of my favorite Gizmos, though. It's just like,
oh, that little sad, yeah.
I love watching because he's just cursing Billy out. You know he is, and I love that. Anyway,
yeah,
but it makes me so pissed.
He's Joe Pesciing with the
exactly. Yeah, Yosemite Sam. But so anyway, so the mom grabs the knife and everything, and I love the fact that she's just, because again, that's what I would have done. I used to do that when I was a latchkey kid for a period in my early mid-teens, where I'd come home and I'd be alone. And I'd hear things, like in the afternoon, and there's no time to be alone in your house that's scarier than afternoon if you think that something is being threatened. For me, nighttime, I don't know, a little on the nose. Like, it's not like I was never scared in my house at night, but I was certainly scared in my house during the day, because who knows what the fuck, scary shit during the day is so fucking scary. Somebody's in my house and it's daytime, I can see them, fuck that shit. So I would go and grab a knife. And sometimes when we had two big carvers, by the time we got them, I'd grab one in one hand and another in the other hand. Have I talked about this before?
No, but I know what you mean about the carver.
But I would hold them even in different angles. I'd hold one up, like this way, and I'd hold the other down.
Yeah.
So no matter what,
and then you got the stance. So each one.
Well, I had them like this actually. So if something got behind me, I can, and if something got in front of me, I can, well, like no matter what the attack is, I have an angle I can go to. And and I used to do that quite frequently in my house when I'd hear noises. Nothing ever got hurt. It was either like my cats or the wind or God knows what it was, and I would just be like, okay, I guess it's nothing, but there doesn't seem to be anything here. I'm peeking under the bed. So anyway, I understand that impulse to grab the knife and go up, because who the fuck knows, especially if there might be some shit there. But I love the fact that I can never hear, do you hear what I hear? Without thinking about this movie. This was my first experience with that song, and I just cannot not see her sitting there shifting her eyes thinking, what the fuck am I gonna do? They're downstairs. They're in the house.
It's one of my favorite examples, and it's been done countless times, when the bad guy or somebody, either on purpose or accidentally, triggers the most not scary, happy song during your moment of tension and suspense.
Sure.
Yeah. That's one of the best examples of it.
Yeah, and it's also and it's in your home.
It's still
something
being
that
done.
Should bring you, and it should be bringing you warmth and making you feel the season, and it's doing the exact opposite. I just
rewatched P2 this week, and they do that like twice in the movie. Specifically, like, let's play Christmas songs over the speakers while I'm stalking you,
Sure. Well, and another thing that, again, Joe Dante, the filmmaker, who I feel like I still haven't even really sung enough praise for. Here we've already had the reveal of the gremlin in the cupboard with Billy. But it's, it's like that. It's like like a nightmare flash. You're just gonna like, wait, whoa, that's what they look like. But I didn't really get a good look at him. And he
Right.
still plays with the fact that we didn't get a good look at them with just like introducing the silhouette showing up while against the wall while her back is turned, and then it just turns away and goes out, and you're just kind of like, ew, oh God, I don't like it. I don't like when things, that Strangers thing, when there's Liv Tyler, she's standing, and then he just steps into the background, and she's just like, doesn't see him, doesn't sense him, and he's just standing there. Fuck me, no. And the Gremlin does that in a different way. It's shot in a different way, but it's like, I don't like it. I don't like knowing that there's like something there, and I don't know, because you're armed. Everything should be in your favor right now, and it's not. Anyway, the whole sequence, I'm totally on board with you about that. One thing that I love, because I did encounter some backlash in recent years, like the last 20 years or so, in vlogs and whatnot, that go after the fact that she's armed and she's capable, but, and I don't
but
agree
Billy
with
still
this.
saves her?
Well, not even that. No, I'm not going to get there. But she defends herself with the tools of the home. And when Billy comes in to save her, what does he grab? A motherfucking sword off the wall. So there's a strange lack of equilibrium. Although that's something that was being argued on the Bechdel cast and in other like vlogs and essays and whatnot, articles. But what I put to that is, I feel like she handled herself better than Billy would have in that situation, number one. Number two, like, you plugged yourself into it, so did I. I was a little boy, and even though I have a mom, and I remember, that's another thing, credit to this scene, I don't feel like it makes her anything other than a mom. There's something about, and that's not dismissive. That's like saying, no, my mom would have done that shit.
And
My mom would have been like, get the fuck out of my kitchen. Yeah. It's just like, you are in my safe place. My family's here. I'm going to fucking defend my place. And I'm going to use whatever I have at my disposal. I'm in a kitchen. So naturally, the only things I have access to are like kitchen stuff. And I would have done the same thing. It's not like I would have ran out and gotten a gun. I would have been like, what do I have? Okay, I've got this mason jar. I can throw this at him and hard enough that it'll break. And then what else do I have? Okay, I've got this stool. I can just beat the shit out of it and push it over to the grandfather clock because there's more glass. And if I push it into the clock, maybe it'll, all the shards will cut it up. You just do what you have to because you're in crisis. And I feel like Joe Dante sets up the crisis, and I feel like the actress who plays her, did I write down her name? Frances Lee McCain playing Mrs. Peltzer executes it in that way. Just kind of like, what do I have? What do I have? And I love, it reminds me of like that, it doesn't have a finesse to it, but at the same time, it's got power behind it. It's like a punch that lands on 3 victims in the kitchen. And I just love the inventiveness. I always loved the grosser edge of stuff, like the baking in the microwave and and then just the full knife attack on that one that she just stabs to death. And it looks scared. Its ears go up and it full on is like shrieking because it knows, fuck, I'm gonna die. I love it.
Can we talk about, have you ever noticed that it doesn't fucking die right away?
Oh yeah.
So as she's leaving the scene, you still see its head going, and its little legs are struggling. And she just leaves it to die out. But that fucker is
that
suffering.
Shit. Yeah. And I
never noticed that when I was a kid, but you can see it behind, you can see his little legs like behind her and like his little head going,
yeah. And then,
also, well, first of all, let me just say, aside from being a tool of motherhood, and I think that's actually a good thing, also, it's a fucking knife. Who gives a shit if it's like a domestic mom thing? Like, it's a knife. I have a penis, and you know what? I think a knife is a good idea for that moment. Who gives a shit?
I will say,
like,
would it have been awesome
in the kitchen? Guess what?
Yeah,
I would go for the knife too.
And she, okay, and also we are talking about like also considering context. Like I think around this probably, I think this movie predated my viewing of Halloween, where Jamie Lee Curtis fucking drops the knife twice, like voluntarily, and that was not uncommon to see. It was so refreshing, even as a child, to see a female character who has just killed 3 things hears the laughter in another section of the house and goes like, oh, you know, like, oh shit, I got to brace myself and I got to go back, and doesn't just go searching for what it is, doesn't even leave the house because she knows she can handle herself. What does she do? She grabs a knife, and when she does that, what does she do? There's another knife. Grabs the other knife, checks the microwave to make sure, yeah, that's dead. I took care of that. That's going to be dead soon. All right. I'm just going to.
So many beats that I consider, I don't want to say masculine, but you see them in movies. Like, there's so many, I see so many versions of this scene where the guy goes to the record player, goes to the kitchen, and gets to have serious face. And we're not playing for laughs. And the fact that they play her totally straight.
Yeah.
I love the dual knives thing, by the way. Because that's also a choice. Like, well, yeah, fucking, that's what I would do.
I feel like that's what I chose because of her. Now that I think about it, but
if anything, I like to think of like if like in Halloween, you know, in Cabin in the Woods, you know, someone pushed the button and Laurie Strode dropped the knife. But
sure.
In the Cabin in the Woods of Gremlins, they're like, oh god damn it, the mother's like doing better than we thought. God damn it, we need to do something because the mom is really resilient here.
Yeah, she's pretty competent. Let's
put one in the tree to jump out at her. Can we do the fake out with the
yeah, right. With the stocking.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, yeah, I mean, yeah, she does ultimately have to get saved, and Bechtelcast even pointed out that what does Billy do? He saves her and then passes her on to another man. And I thought, okay, but you know, she deserves a break. Like, give mom a break. She
doesn't need to keep going with you and encounter everything else you're about to encounter.
One of my favorite things too is when Billy comes after he drops her off with the doctor and then goes back to the kitchen and sees the aftermath of what she's done, and it's like, oh shit, mom was busy.
Yeah.
I thought I had to be worried about the other gremlins, but
I mean,
yeah, she was right. She handled herself. Okay.
Mom holds her own, but that's also a prime example of like, you know, and you see this in life. You're like, do not fuck with the mom. You push the mom into this little corner, and she will do what she needs to do. All that mama bear shit, like that happened. Yeah.
The lioness, but and it makes me think like, what would it have been badass if mom would have like reached for the sword that kept falling off, you know, like it was planted for us, like if she would have like
it falls down twice, you know.
Yeah. And again, it's Billy reaching for something he could. And also, again, if we're going with the extension of like the original kind of like intention with Billy's character, the fact that he starts off like this kind of boyish, like normal boy, like, oh gee, Mr. Futterman, I gotta get going, you know, kind of thing, small town USA boy, who draws these outlandish like comic book characters and who dreams of being a hero. There's even a deleted scene where he's going through his sketches, and the last one you see is the troll warrior or the troll hunter, something like that. And he doesn't know that he's setting himself up to be the troll hunter. And by the end of it, he was supposed to be kind of like this swashbuckling, you know, whatever, this fully realized boy into hero thing. And I'm really glad they didn't go with that route, but I feel like if anything, that's just like a remnant of like his kind of incline to heroism that I'm glad they chipped away at. Yeah.
Just like the innocence of him and Kate, and when he asks her out, or the way he handles Mr. Futterman, I'll feel like, oh yeah, that I do see like the kid version of, oh, I can't wait to see your drawings. Well, okay, thanks, Mr. Futterman. Because especially when adults ramble on about shit that you don't care about, like, oh, these fucking German cars, these foreign cars, you did with the American thing. All right, Mr. Futterman.
Just shrugs and just moves on. Sure,
he does a good job of playing all that as still an adult, but there's like a kind of polite innocence with him that I think still works. I feel like we've been going on for a while, but I can't not talk about Kate.
Please do.
And what a cool cat she is. I respect that she, again, there's nothing wrong with media depicting characters as what the media likes to consider girly or excitable and enthusiastic and, you know, not to be dreamy-eyed, but like, you know, I like that she is not melting over Billy at the bank. Even not just melting, but, you know, the scene doesn't end and then it doesn't cut to her just being like, or just something subtle. Like, the interest is there. It's a very, for such a such cartoony creatures. She gives a very grounded performance.
Yes, very
Um,
much so.
there's first of all, I admire the confidence,
Mm-hmm.
and on different levels. There's the confidence of, hey, Kate, you haven't seen my new apartment. I haven't seen your old apartment.
Yeah.
Like that kind of, not only is she gonna shoot him down, but like, I'm not fucking interested, and I got shit to do, and I fuck you, like confidence. But
Mm-hmm.
also when he's like, hey, so when your next Thursday is off, do you wanna go like on a date? And just, it's not like it never occurred to her. Not only does she immediately respond with like, I'd love to,
Yeah.
but he steps in to this, like, it's almost, it's this close to having like a spotlight or something. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
well we could talk, and she just goes like, yeah, like, yeah, we'll talk about it later. Like, shut the fuck up while you're still ahead.
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of charmed by you. But and then like this little smile when she
Yeah.
says goodnight, but like none of it is like, golly, the boy likes me. It's
No,
all, I've
he's
got my
he's
own
the giddy one.
and I'm a
Yeah.
mature girl, and I'm like really nice. Like, I'm gonna volunteer to work at a bar and not get paid to help someone out. Um,
Yeah.
the town is suffering. Like, people are losing their jobs. Like, if it helps this bar from going under, like. But anyway, I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate this level of confidence, but they don't make her too cool for school. Like, there's still these little hints of warmth that like show up, like that little crack of a smile at the end of the way he asks her out. And also, I just like, there is something pure about, I don't want to say innocent, but that is a perfect little moment of just like the way he asks her out.
Yeah.
The, there's a very that honestly, that's like the scene that I always kind of lean in and like watch like every time with like a little bit more, like, because I lean in when the dad talks, but they play that both so perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really know how to phrase it, but like I've he's bringing a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's already found who Billy is as
Yeah.
far as his youthful kind of innocence without being too much of a goof, but like
Mm-hmm.
it's played so pure and perfect. It's like a perfect little minute of the movie.
Yeah. And it's, you know what I love about it is the fact that it's so the wrong time to ask her out, to finally ask her out on a date, because I always remember it kind of even striking a discordant note with me right the moment right before, because he asked her, what are you, Hindu or something, about her not liking
Yeah.
Christmas, and her getting all, God, you tell people you don't like this or that, but then you tell Christmas, they teach you like you're a
Well, that's not a
leper or
deal
something,
breaker
and just
though.
walk away. No, it's
Yeah.
not a deal breaker, but I love the fact that, like, this is what always occurred to me as a kid, where I'm like, ooh, bad move, Billy, even as a kid, where he apologizes and she's just like, no, I'm sorry, I'm just really tired and cranky. He goes, yeah.
Well, again, he is kind of an innocent, not schmuck, but I mean, he's, yeah, there. He's
But
not.
as a kid, I remember even as a kid, like, I'm going, and
But
now I
yeah,
watch it and I'm just like, it's adorable. I think
again,
it's really, really sweet.
well, again, the impression I get is she's not saying yes
Sure.
to the date of the Billy of this moment, but to this
No.
Billy that she's clearly known for a while. And
Well, also she sends him like a little kind of like, we're cool though, like, just like, well, thanks for walking me home, Billy. Like,
yeah,
we're cool. And then
yeah,
I think it's equally impressive to her, the fact that he asks her at, like, such a kind of inopportune moment, when maybe we don't know how many opportune moments they've had for this. I mean, they
right.
are kind of doing goo-goo eyes at each other at the bank when she like leans in close to him and stuff like that. There's that moment I never understood as a kid, and my mom tried to explain it, I think just to shut me up. But when they're in the bar with Judge Reinhold and he's just like, we're talking cable, can we get it? And it starts because I watched it in SD, not in HD.
Mhm.
So I didn't see that there's a little thing of sawdust on Billy's shoulder, and
Oh
that
yeah,
she reaches to take it off. And it was just like something that they improvised, like on the moment. I think Joe Dante said, put some sawdust, we got some sawdust on the floor, just put some on his shoulder and just pick it off, just like to show him that he's the suitor you favor.
hmm
And I didn't see that when I was a kid. You can't see that it's sawdust. It just looked like she grabbed a little piece of his coat, almost just kind of like, ooh, I like me some of that, and then moved on. And I asked my mom, I was just kind of like, is that a thing? What did she just do? Why'd she pinch his coat like that? And my mom just said, because she couldn't see the sawdust either. So she just we're watching on a VHS, and she just tells me like, yeah, when you like a guy, you do that.
And that's how Eddie learned to flirt.
Now, whenever I like a guy, I just pinch his shoulder.
I've chosen you.
But so I always just kind of thought, oh, okay, I guess that's just an adult thing I don't get, and just roll with it. Like your parents give you any explanation. My mom did that a lot with me as a kid. I had a lot of questions, and she didn't always want to answer them. And but I mean, yeah, I like the fact that the seed is definitely planted that she's interested. And one thing that I did like that they brought up on Bechdel cast, with feminism in mind and everything, is that Billy explicitly asks for a date.
Yes, not
like he spells it out. It's not like, it's not just like, hey, you want to hang out sometime? And her going like, oh yeah, sure. And then finding out she's on a fucking date with him.
Right.
I like the fact that he spells it out like, no, would you want to go out on a date? And he even clarifies at the end, maybe with me.
Yeah.
And so she knows exactly what she's agreeing to, and that's another thing that gives him like all the reason in the world why I like that he's so delighted, and he's the one with the butterflies and that's great. We can call each other and really kind of just.
I think
square everything.
One of the reasons I relate to it, I've literally had that exact experience.
Yeah.
And I wish I had shut the fuck up and quit while I was ahead. After she said yes, like he should have. Luckily, he stopped before he really, because you could tell he was about to like, oh, that's great. Well, then maybe I could do this and we can go here. And then, and it would have been like,
yeah.
Yeah.
But she's
I asked a girl in high school out to like homecoming or homecoming.
Oh, no.
And no, but it was perfectly innocent. But I literally, like, I reached out and like held her hands and like I asked her, and she said yes. And I literally, just like Billy, I went, oh, well, great. Except I swung my arms out, and there was like a giant metal pole next to us, and I smashed her hand into the pole.
Oh my God.
Like, oh, okay, thanks for saying yes, bye. Like, I didn't run away, but like the moment was sweet, and then it was fucking not,
Oh my God. Did you guys talk about it?
Yeah.
Like later?
Yeah. We talked about it in that moment, but like, but even then it's like, okay, so, and then we'll talk about the dance and your fucking hand, but like,
And she's just like, okay, thanks, Don Carlos.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the nurse's office now.
But every time I see Billy step forward and go, oh, well, great. I'm just like, stop.
Yeah.
You're going to smash your hand.
She said goodnight, and he knew to shut up after that. So
yes.
That's good. But you're going to smash her hand.
I did not watch Gremlins enough to have learned that lesson by the time I was 14.
One last Kate-related thing I want to ask you, because it's infamous now, and I feel like it gets a lot of flack. But I want to know what you think. The speech, that's how I learned there was no Santa Claus story. How do you feel about that?
I fucking love it.
Me too.
It is. I can't deny that it is an unnecessary detour.
Mm-hmm.
However, movies are full of great and necessary detours. That's usually some of the best salt in the soup. Is like, well, we didn't need that, but we had it.
Right.
And we're going on what, 34, 35 years later. Like, right. You mentioned Gremlins, people go, oh, fucking Santa Claus monologue. Expertly played.
Yes.
Especially after that whole story, and then like, that's how I found out there's no Santa Claus. Like, it's perfectly delivered. No, it's actually one of the things that makes me like the movie is that even the movie's already feels like a fun, like, Christmas thing, and then creatures and things get killed and exploded in microwaves. But even if you didn't have that, like that already feels like it sticks out a bit, and that's why I like it. It definitely shows the movie isn't. I'm not saying it's look how different we are, but like it definitely creates like we're gonna get fucked up here for a minute. Like we've got a skewed sense of humor for something. I don't really have. I just that's my answer. I guess is it's fucking awesome.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Because it makes me think about, I remember a quote that on How Did This Get Made, June Diane Raphael said about Grease 2, a movie that we all love.
Mm.
But she talked about like the experience of watching it as a little girl, and about she was lucky enough to see it before she knew that there was such a thing as bad movies, which I feel very close to. Because I saw Gremlins before I knew that there was such a thing as bad movies. I'm not saying Gremlins is a bad movie or Grease 2, but I'm saying I saw it before I had like a kind of discerning eye. There was just the movies, you know, and you just watched them. You knew you liked movies and you watched them.
Did this not stick out to you as a weird thing? It was just
Not
part of
at
the movie?
all. When I was a boy, it made all the sense in the world, because I was like, oh yeah, because she doesn't like Christmas, so we're just finding out what it is. Also, I guess intrinsically, I knew that you require peaks and valleys in a movie, I guess. Like it seemed like a natural detour, because here we have all this action, we got all this build up to the climax at the end, so of course we're going to take a moment to pause, because when else are we going to find out about why she hates Christmas?
Taking the moment is natural.
I thought it was sad.
Out of her mouth is not natural as far as screenwriting 101.
But I did not know that.
Right.
And I didn't know that it was supposed to be funny until literally I bought the DVD release in like 2000 or 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I watched it with the commentary, and I heard them discuss, and I had never had anything associated other than sadness with that, like sorrow for her at that moment. So I hear Joe Dante saying like, it was a joke. And I'm like,
yeah.
what? Because she doesn't play it like a joke. She plays it so legitimately.
That's
like
why
my dad.
it's a joke.
And I know, but it's not a joke. I still feel like it's a joke I don't get, because I'm just kind of like, I don't get it. She did a good job. I'm glad it's in the movie. I'm glad we're talking about it right now.
There's not much to get, Eddie. It's
no, I don't get it. It's fucked up. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I feel like if I would have been with Joe as a member of the creative team in the inception, I would have been like, Joe, what is this? Why is this here?
I feel like you're Elias and I'm Randall, and we're gonna buy a donkey to watch get fucked. Why do you want to watch that? Because it's fucked up.
Right. I don't want to watch that. Why would you want to watch that? But it wasn't, I don't know, it's just something, yeah, it's something that I'm like, whatever. But I still watch it and I still think, God, she's so sad. But I like it. I feel it's part of the movie. I can't imagine the movie without it. But
Absolutely.
what upsets me is I remember some years later when before Crystal Lake Memories came out, but when His Name Was Jason DVD came out, someone, I don't remember who, I think he worked for Fangoria or he was a special effects guy or something like that, somebody in the industry, talking about comparing Dana Kimmel's speech in Friday the 13th Part 3 about Jason pinning her to the ground to Phoebe Cates, saying they're both played terribly and they're both written terribly and they're both equally as irrelevant to the body of the thing. And I got so incensed because I'll go on record here. I've said it before, but I'm not a fan of the Dana Kimmel monologue, either before the edits to make, when Jason was a rapist,
right,
or with the edits to kind of allude to, I just don't know what happened. I don't know. But I watched it again recently, and Dana Kimmel is not my favorite final girl, and she's playing it with this kind of like 1980s sitcom-y kind of acting, just like, he had a knife and he attacked me with it. And trivializing anything anybody might have actually gone through, who's ever had a knife, and been attacked with it. And then I watched Phoebe Cates and I'm just like, no. This, I mean, first of all, how many people fell down chimneys and died pretending to be Santa Claus to surprise their families? I don't feel like that's offensive, enough to like be worried about. Secondly, it's so legitimately played. Phoebe Cates was such a gifted actress at such a young age. And I hate the false equivalency. So if anybody sees those two monologues kind of on par with each other, I disagree respectfully.
Right. Like, I don't know who this person is that you're talking about. And I don't like to slander people that I've never met who are real, but that is a foolish statement.
I agree.
And not comparable to each other whatsoever.
Yeah. Anything else for you?
Yeah, actually, we're still talking about her monologue.
Yes.
The Tracy mentioned this when we were watching it, and I was like, oh yeah. It's just we'll talk about her monologue in Gremlins 2 when we discuss Gremlins 2.
Yeah.
But I will say that by having her talk about President's Day in Gremlins 2
Mm-hmm.
now makes the line, gosh, say you hate Washington's birthday or Thanksgiving, nobody cares. As if she's already got her President's Day story experience.
Yes.
And she has maybe brought it up and no one seemed to give a shit. But like she's probably told that's like retroactively, that's a fun retcon.
Yeah.
Say Washington's birthday and nobody cares.
Or Thanksgiving. I wonder what her Thanksgiving story is. We all probably have a Thanksgiving story though. But
I have random little things.
Please continue.
I wanted to mention this when we were talking about the mom and the record player.
Yeah.
I never noticed until this viewing. At age 40, I noticed. Although you can't blame me for VHS. But when she goes into the living room and the record player's playing, on the little thingy next to the record player, there are gremlin footprints in the dust.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's a little handprint on the wall as if it had braced itself and leaned over and turned on the record player. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's fucking great. That's awesome.
I agree.
And the movie's full of little details that, of course, you pick up on over time. The little footprints, like I just said. I think it was somewhere in my early 20s because I don't think I saw The Time Machine until I was like maybe 19 or 20 years old. So now I'm watching Gremlins, and he's at the Invention Convention.
Yes.
And there's a fucking time machine
in
the background, which is a cool gag. But if you're a hardcore goob, you already know this story. But they cut to the mom, and then we cut back to probably my favorite joke in the movie, which is the time machine is gone, and there's a little cloud of smoke, and these people are like waving, where to go? But that shit, like Gremlins 2, there's a lot of seeds of what Gremlins 2 will do in this movie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And to me, if you take the bar scene and just went, well, let's make a whole fucking movie about the bar scene.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that scene alone has Spielberg going by, the time machine going by, I think Robbie the Robot walks by. Yeah, and then also the guy next to him in the phone is supposed to be Joe Dante. It's not actually Joe Dante, but he's supposed to be. Like they dressed up a guy to be like, hey, you wear glasses and a shirt, but that's you.
Yes.
So all that there's a lot of little nuggets.
Yeah.
A million more in Gremlins 2.
Oh yeah, sure.
Were you about to say something?
No, it's just you remarking on the time machine makes me remember. You know whose favorite bit that was my dad's.
It's a great bit.
He was the one who pointed out to me. He was just gonna I think he even rewinded it the first time because I don't think I noticed it maybe the first viewing. I don't remember my first viewing, but I remember him rewinding it and just kind of being like, look, the time machine's there and then it's not. And he was like rewinding like, see? And I watched him like, oh, I said, see everybody because it works. It's such a dad joke, like, and he loves, he loved sci-fi. He knew the time machine, but he also just loved the fact that it works, the fact that here's Hoyt with his little bathroom buddy and he's surrounded by all these like
fucking time machine.
Fucking time machine in the background and it fucking works. So everybody's like, look, they're like brushing the smoke away.
Like, it's so great.
Dad. Yeah.
Well, and then that's my favorite gag in the movie. And then also there's other things in the movie that just like, hey, guess what? I'm 40 and farts and puke is still funny to me. Sure. And just sometimes random timing of shit. I love fucking all the Mogwais are up here and Gizmo's down there. Poor little guy. Oh, his little horn. And he's cute. And it's fucking Mogwai goes. And just douches it with puke. It's not quite a spit, but it's not quite puke, but it's definitely a lot.
It's definitely projectile,
Oh
whatever it
fuck!
is. Yeah.
It's I have such a mix of emotions
Pewy.
because on the one hand, I feel one Gizmo's being cute, and then I feel really bad for him. I feel like,
Yeah.
oh no, the mean Mogwais and poor Gizmo, and my heart breaks a little bit. Like, don't be fucking mean to him.
Yeah.
But I can be of two minds of on the same scene, and also just there's just this little monster in me. It's like, you fucking Snitchico. That little fucker. Look at that asshole. There's it's something, I know that it's not nice and it's not sweet. I call it, it's, you know, if I was Dexter, that would be like my dark passenger being like, and then spit on him. It's you know, we've discovered that you're the Will and I'm the Hannibal, and that's, I just get so much glee, even though I shouldn't, watching him fucking puke on him.
Yeah.
But
because I'm the Will, I look at the spit or the puke, or I always thought it was a loogie, whatever, because I hear like pewy.
it's
But when he says it,
so much comes out.
yeah, a lot of it comes out. Like, but it just makes me think like I feel like I could be with the forensic team, just kind of seeing the loogie, puke, whatever, stain on the carpet, and just trying to deduce like what it must have been like for Gizmo to sit there playing his trumpet and get spit at. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's just good shit.
I think one of my favorite bits is the fact that Mrs. Deagle thinks that the Gremlins are coming for her, that they're demons from hell, and she thinks that she's going to escape them by riding her little, I don't know, what is it, escalator or whatever it is.
Them.
Her little seat. Well, she thinks if she just goes upstairs, she'll be safe. I guess safe enough.
Classic
like, I'm not
horror
ready.
mistake.
I'm not ready. I have to go upstairs. And what follows, actually, I do laugh at that. Her scream.
I not only do I laugh at that, I always like that scene, and not just because haha come up and see the bad guy, but I also, she's so mean.
Yeah.
And put together. It's not that she's not wearing the wig. It's just that she puts on such a blustering fucking front, and to see her. Mm-hmm. I'm not rooting for like a woman to be victimized in any kind of thing, but I am rooting for a fucking villain to like be shown to be a little more blustery than they really are. And yeah. I just take just even before she gets in the chair, just seeing her fucking marching into the fucking bank, and it's like, no, you're full of shit. Look, you're weak, and you're fucked.
You're surrounded by cats.
but when I was a kid, seeing her fucking launch out of the like every kid in school, we thought that was hilarious. Now I just look at all the cats and I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. I get it.
I also just love the fact that I'm watching Flo be bad. Like Polly Holiday, I had already loved Alice, the TV show, when I was a kid, with Linda Lavin and with fucking Flo. So Polly Holiday in that movie, at first I didn't even recognize her because I'd never seen her be mean.
Oh,
she didn't have her hand on her hip. She wasn't telling anybody to kiss her grits. So I didn't until much later. And I was just kind of like, oh, she's good. You know, that's all I thought. But but Mrs. Deagle, the character, I understood. Yeah, this is a bad person. This is Cruella de Vil level bad person. You know, the Christmas carolers, you're gonna throw water on them.
Yeah.
You know, fuck.
You know what? The fucking Gremlins. First of all, you're right. Getting ready to throw water on them is fucked up. But what's fucked up is that a gremlin, was it the Mogwais? Yeah, the Mogwais string up Billy's dog.
Oh yes. Barney.
Here's what's fucked up. The logical conclusion is, well, Mrs. Deagle.
Right.
That's what a piece of shit she is.
Yep.
Because if you didn't have her, like, that's a suspicious thing. What the fuck is the dog? How did this happen? In any other movie, if you didn't have Miss Deagle, you'd be like, you idiots, you're ignoring the warning signs. But with Miss Deagle, you're like, oh, at least we have a warning sign. But what an asshole. What an asshole. Also, she was already from TV when she was in that, but retroactively, Jonathan Banks from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul is one of the two cops. And
right, yeah.
About 5 or 6 years ago, I'm watching it going, because to anyone out there watching who's a Breaking Bad fan, like Mike, it's my fucking favorite character. So I'm watching Gremlins, and I'm just like, I know that face. I know that nose. I know the sound of that Oh my God, it's Mike Ehrmantraut. Holy shit. And he, even like on Community, which is a comedy, he has to play so straight.
Mhm.
It's fun to see him just be kind of he plays such a doofy fucking guy. He's
Yeah, he
great.
does.
What a great
Yeah,
range. I love him. Love
yeah, me
him.
too. Yeah,
Um,
leaves an impression for sure.
yeah. And if you ever get around to Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, he is legit the best fucking thing on that show. And that's a show full of
Nice.
great performances.
Right.
Um, I don't have any great uh, outro or a way to wrap it all up. But I will say that
Yeah.
one of the little graces of this movie, two graces of this movie, is what I'll end with.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna end with the little things, and then you can end with whatever. The
Okay.
music is,
Mm-hmm.
dare I say, genius. Not
Mm-hmm.
just the main melody. When you get to experience Billy going to work, and just like,
Yeah.
this is our going through the town music, and you're kind of
Yes.
getting to learn the landscape, and here's the general, like, the music sells so much of this movie. To me, this movie is
Yes.
already, what they put on camera is great. And you hear a lot of times when the movie doesn't really come together until the score. I can't even begin to fucking imagine what this movie would be without this score. From him crossing the town square to him coming to work, and then the theme when fucking Kate comes in.
Mm.
That kind of, they've used it for other times, like especially in Gremlins 2, but it's fucking this. But it's like
Yes.
strings,
Yeah.
and it tells you everything you need to know about how they feel about each other.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have that main Gremlins theme, the melody is little, but
Mm-hmm.
it explodes with the Futterman tractor scene,
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Joe Dante talked about how, like, when he was playing him, like, the melody, like when he was showing him the score, he's like, I don't know. He's like, no. And he's like, and he's like, no, he was right. Um, they don't go into it much. At least I've never heard the commentaries. They don't go into the making of, but I heard somewhere that, like, because I know the script was darker than when they had some rewrites.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard that, like, there's elements of the movie that I think maybe played. Obviously, the bar scenes, some of the gags are meant to be funny, but, like, there were other elements that were originally supposed to play a little creepier, but the
Mm.
score makes them work. And I forget. I think it might even been some other YouTuber video, or a story that someone told about how, like, if you played the Futterman scene with not that music, it's
Yeah.
fucking horrific.
Oh yeah.
So the
Mm-hmm.
music achieves so much. That movie, it's fucking everything.
Even
And
if
then,
you play a different section of the Gremlins theme when they do it, the one that always scared the shit out of me in the end credits, we never hear it in the body of the movie, I don't think. It's just the bridge, the
yeah, the little bass solo.
with all the
Hmm.
over it and everything. That was always the part that I was like, lights on
No,
when
the
I was a
music
kid.
in the end credits. Well, also, it ends the fucking warning from Mr. Peltzer.
Yeah, there might be a gremlin in your house.
Dude, when you're 5 or 6 or 7 years old and you just finished watching that movie and then you look at your fridge,
Yeah.
shit, fuck that. And then because the music, when they do it for the end credits of Gremlins 2, I'm just like,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
but the end credits for Gremlins 1, it's creepy.
Yeah.
No, it's so creepy. The only other thing, the puppetry, like you said, we both agree. Rick Baker gets so much praise for the second movie, but the first movie also
Mm-hmm.
achieves so much. Not only is Mogwai's cute, not only are the Gremlins impressive on their own, um, not as a discredit to Rick Baker, who I fucking worship,
Yes.
but there's a lot more of torso up gremlin activity in that movie. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of very Muppety gremlins.
Mm-hmm.
What they can achieve with them is amazing. But this movie shows more of, like, creative ways of implying how they travel. We see that shot at the bar, and you see
Mm-hmm.
these two just sort of, you could tell that they're just
Yes.
puppeted along, but they're animating their legs to look like they're hopping. And they're
Mm-hmm.
literally, we see them in frame just hopping along. We have Stripe on the tricycle. the one that really creeped me out is we see Billy laying on the ground, and we see that one hop out of frame, and then we cut to someone just throwing a fucking little basketball into the pool. But like that one hop, we constantly get to see their feet.
Yeah.
Or we see more implication of travel when they're leaving when they're escaping that hall in the movie theater, and we just see all these heads. Like I don't doubt the mechanics of their feet jumping in a way that 2 doesn't show me as much. There's a lot of just like
like climbing over each other and stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
So I just really appreciate the legwork in this movie, and just all the creative. I'll never get over when Stripe. We cut to like 3 or 4 different phases of him, melting away. But that skeleton, that absolutely reads solid, but then it deflates.
Yeah. Beautiful. Just beautiful. Also, in alignment with what you're saying, because I concur completely. One thing that that they were able to do with the sequel, which we'll discuss at a later date, but that really got planted with the first movie, was knowing exactly who the Gremlins are. I don't mean like as far as identity, like each individual gremlin, but I just mean like, you know who they are. You know what you get with a gremlin. You know what they sound like. You know how they move, and you know what their general spirit is. You know, even as unpredictable as they are, because they can be dangerous and imposing, but they can also be playful and just want to have fun and satirize pop culture or imitate human beings. There's something so specific that, like, if you saw somebody acting like a gremlin, or if you had a gremlin puppet of your own, you know exactly what you would do to make it act like a gremlin, with its body language and with the way it sounds and with everything. They really nailed. They kept it from being a generic kind of breed of movie monster that's forgettable. It was impactful, and not just the Mogwai. Both the Mogwais and the Gremlins were so memorable and beyond memorable. I mean, they're iconic. Like, I mean, I feel like people who don't even know, who haven't even seen the movies, know what Gizmo looks like and could identify him by name. And that says a lot, because I was listening to one of the commentaries just while I was waiting for you, and I think it was the one with Joe Dante and the team behind the scenes, and they were just discussing the design and how there were so many designs they went through and so many different fur patches and everything they went through with the Mogwai, and they knew that the bar was E.T. You know, that as far as like impact and immediate recognition and everything like that. And they wanted something akin to that, never really fully believing they would create something like that. And then once they started like looking back at their dailies and like, you know, and they settled on a look because they needed to settle on it, and then they put it on the thing, they started realizing, you know, this could be, even the production would come in and look at the dailies of Gizmo and just be like, I see an opportunity here that they hadn't actually had in mind when they were designing it. They weren't thinking, we need some toys we can sell from this movie. They were just trying to make a movie. It was only kind of like not by design, but I mean, just kind of like by accident, by happenstance, that it turned out to be as iconic and as kind of like well put together, with flaws,
which is
that we've discussed as it was. Yeah,
that's usually the best way you get iconic stuff, is you're putting the intentions of your story in your movie first.
Exactly.
You know, you're not trying to design a bat ski jet in Batman and Robin to sell the toy.
Exactly.
You know.
It had spirit, and it had something people would respond to, because it was designed to evoke an emotional reaction beyond "Mommy, mommy, buy me that." It was supposed to be a cinematic reaction, something that was part of, you know, creating a character that you could care about just within the framework of the movie. And the merchandising, it was largely, you know, part of the 80s, but it's nice to know that it was not in the forefront of their minds, or really even in their minds, because they were so swamped with their production problems and deadlines and whatnot. So
you really hit on something with knowing the way they move, because one of the things that always sticks with me is, and again, there's only so much you as a human can do.
Yes.
With this, and And even when you look at Muppets or other thing, when people laugh, the Kermit laugh. But if you do the jiggle, that's an enthusiastic jiggle. But to me, with
Yes.
Gremlins, it isn't just, oh, we shake them when they laugh, the way other people have done that. There's something about the idea, and you see it a lot in all the ones at the bar and whenever one gets shot. It's there is so much joy that they are getting out of this mischief that it is such a laugh that their fucking body, like the laugh comes from below and shakes everything. It is a laugh born out of anarchy and delight in that, and there's something about the way they shake. It is, and they add, and also the vocal performance. That giant, I can't do it.
No.
If I did, it would sound terrible and it would wake the neighbors. But that giant high-pitched cackle.
Yes.
It works. It's
body
shape.
And it even has a character in and of itself. Like, you do not want them laughing at you. No. I don't want Gremlins laughing at me, because either they're making fun of me or they know something that I don't know that's probably going to lead to me getting injured or dead.
Right.
Like, whatever it is, it's not good.
Okay, you're right. But my brain just jumped to that, how, like, even in Gremlins 2 and Gremlins 1, like, yeah, they can kill you, but at least they're laughing. Even the spider gremlin, like, there's so much menace, but you know what really also fucks me up is the one that's just got the ski mask and the gun.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not playing by all the other rules. I'm not going to be laughing at you and clawing at you. Like, no, fucker, like, I'm the serious one, and that fucker freaks me out.
Well, what scares me about him is I feel like he's just playing a role. Like, in a minute, he's just going to be laughing and giggling with the rest of them, but in that moment, I've got a gun on you, and I know.
I never took it as that.
Oh, I
don't think he's playing a role. I think he's the gremlin that came out, and it's not a role. Like, that's who he is. And it bothers me.
Okay. Again, me with the appropriation. I always thought, because another thing that one last little thing that bothers me about Billy. It's just a little thing, and I don't have a lot to say about it.
Okay.
Just the way he embraces Dan Futterman's word, gremlins, to describe them. The fact that she's what are they? And he's just like, they're gremlins, Kate, just like Mr. Futterman said. I'm like, fuck you, Billy. What? What sense does that make? It never bothered me as a kid, but as an adult, if I were Kate, I'd be like, that racist piece of shit. What? Why are you backing him up? Like, okay, you're no longer a hero. You're not, I don't hate you, but we're going to have a little discussion when we're through all this on our date, Billy. The only other thing I have to say, like, in kind of key with that, is I wrote down the Key Luke quote that I fucking love, that, again, it spoke to me what this movie was, even as a child. I wrote it down. He just says, "You do with Mogwai what your society has done with all of nature's gifts. You do not understand. You are not ready." There's an Asian man in a white suburban household telling all the white people, you don't know what it's about.
Yeah.
You're not ready. I'm taking him back. Thanks for the ashtray.
That doesn't work, because that gas station guy's all like, well, he's holding
right. That's why he tried to sell it to him. But again, like, he gets to leave without incident. Like, they feel shame. They feel even though Billy's like, Dad, he's not going like, no, that's my gizmo. You can't take, It's like, no, they know. Wow, we all fucked up. We all
maybe
fucked
one
up.
day when you're ready.
Yeah, maybe. And he even gives them, like, some hope at the end. He didn't need to, but I dig that.
All my favorite type of alien sci-fi involves an alien race, like Day the Earth Stood Still style, being like, you people destroy everything. You're not fucking ready. Like, it's a morality lesson that I like in my sci-fi. So
me too. I love when forces that are greater than us have faith in us. That's a big winner for me. because it makes me want to be better and makes me want to be worthy. But I also really, really dig in a lot of sci-fi when us, I mean, I'm a person, I dig watching us just fucking get it. That's why I love the first Jurassic Park more than any of the other movies, because that's the only one where I kind of feel like I don't have to watch dinosaurs suffer. No, they're turning it back on us, motherfuckers. Yeah, you wanted us back? Here's what you got. I love that kind of poetic justice. And it goes back to that morality lesson that I
Yeah.
got from movies like Gremlins and from Willy Wonka. Just
And
don't fuck up.
Yeah, and in a weird way, that does continue into Gremlins 2 thematically.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
we'll tackle
get
that. Not during the holidays, but because I knew we could fill fucking a long time on Gremlins 1 alone, and I just want to talk about that during the Christmas season.
Yeah.
But yeah, come back for Gremlins 2 someday, and we'll be back with probably one more Christmas movie before December ends.
Yeah. But maybe someday you will be ready.
So thanks for joining me, Eddie.
Thank you for asking me, John Carlos. I had a lot to say.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you if you are still.
Yeah, especially after shit got serious for like a half an hour.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just had to get it off my chest.
No, it was enlightening for me. It was something new for me. Yeah.
Awesome. Maybe it's something new for you too, people, whoever's watching. Yeah, awesome. Thank you.